Everybody, and welcome to the podcast that's dedicated to making you a faster cyclist, the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast presented by TrainerRoad. I'm Coach Jonathan Lee with our head coach, not our head coach, he's not here, our CEO, Nate Pearson.
Hello.
Cannondale and TrainerRoad's Amber Pierce.
Hello, everyone.
And we're excited to have a super special guest with us this week. Thanks for joining us, man. Justin Williams from Legion of Los Angeles. How's it going?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Excited to be here.
Sweet.
So excited.
We had like so many angles that we wanted to approach on this. We're like, should we just watch Nate's sprint video? Like, what should we do? Like, there are a lot of different options, but we're going to cover a number of different things, of course, sprinting, teamwork. We're going to cover race and cycling, the issues that you've come across, then what all of us can do that are listening to this to make it a more inclusive sport and to break down those barriers that exist. And the goal is we'll learn from all of this and become better people, and also, but above all, also faster cyclists too, right? That's really the goal, to do both. So we're going to tackle all of those things. But first things first, we'll also answer some of the questions that people have submitted. You can watch this episode on YouTube. If you're joining us live now, thank you. Give it a thumbs up, especially now Justin's here. It's exciting stuff. And we'll jump into things. But first, we should just mention one quick thing, right, Nate? Job posting, really quick, that we have.
Actually, no, it's probably going to be filled. So sorry.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, stay tuned at trainerroad.com/jobs, because then you can actually subscribe to the RSS and then go from there. So, Justin, before we get into digging into things, I wanted to go over the athlete that you've been for years, because I feel like a lot of people know of Justin Williams of Legion, but they don't know much of your background. So Nate,
there could be some triathletes too who don't know you, right? If you just follow Ironman racing,
totally
maybe never heard of Justin Williams.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So get ready to blush for a bit. But so running through it, he has 11 U.S. national championships to his name. So in 2006, that's the Kieran, the match sprint, team pursuit, and team sprint. Yes, those are track disciplines. In 2007, Kieran, team pursuit, and U23 criterium. So that's like when you started jumping into the road too, at least at that level, at winning national championships. Which, by the way, we asked Justin how many he had, and he lost count. So that just shows. In 2008,
that's more because it was a long time ago. Getting old.
2008, Kieran and U23 crit. 2017, you won, and these are races that are super unique and complex. Dana Point GP, BC Super Week GP, sprint leader at North Star Grand Prix. 2018 Elite Criterium and Elite Road National Champion, 2019 Elite Criterium, and then you also won 2 of 3 races at Tulsa Tough and got the Omnium win. I think you won Salt Lake last year too, right?
I missed the Omnium win by 1 point at Tulsa, actually. Yeah.
Man,
oh no.
The point systems are always set up kind of weird, but I lost to this guy Sam on Elevate.
Sam Bassetti.
Sam Bassetti.
Yeah, we know him well. Yeah.
Fantastic all-arounder.
He
basically
is.
Last stage, just took it by the horns. Yeah. And fair and good enough for him. We had 4 guys in the breakaway. So I was like, I can't chase it down. We have 4 guys in the breakaway. Corey has this massive bridge. He always posted on Instagram. It's I hit it for a lap. And he rides up next to me. He's like, dude, just let the race come to you. And then he attacks across. He attacks across and he closes a 45-second gap or something. And I'm like, dude, you should have taken me with you. He was like, you couldn't come with me.
Yeah, that bridge, he went full nuke on that bridge. That was impressive.
Crazy.
Yeah, you should go on to Nation's #1 Beast. You can find him there on Instagram. Also, Justin Williams, you can find him on Instagram too. And Legion, you can check out all the videos. They have that famous sprint video that you guys, I think Corey just reposted it again. And that sprint video with you guys doing a leadout, and it's like your power meters are broken or something. I don't get it. they're numbers that are totally unfamiliar for me. But then
it's very intimidating. I want to talk, Justin, so everyone knows, and especially for the people that aren't road racers, in that sprint video, can you describe what it is and the power you guys did, and the speeds you get to?
Is it the one where we're just we're not in? Is it the one that we're not in a race that we're just
Yep.
Okay, so we're doing a photo shoot with one of our sponsors, Met Terra CBD, and plug.
Nice.
And we're coming down, and Corey had wanted this video for a while now, and they were like shooting out the back of this truck, so like it was already okay. So we finished our photo shoot, and we're coming down this hill, and Corey like goes up to like the guy that's shooting is like one of our pretty good friends. His name is Nick, and he's like, dude, I want this video. And Nick's like, all right, cool, like easy, like we if you know we could just whatever, we got all day. So we're coming off of like Mount Baldy Road, and then there's just like this big drop in. And once you drop in, it levels off, and then it's like this rolling turn, right? So we come off of it, and Hunter's on the front. So Hunter goes, we're doing like, I think we're doing like 34. And then Corey goes, and then we're doing like 40. And then I go, and we're doing like 43. But it's like, yeah, it's funny because when we're going up to speed, I'm sitting behind Corey like, go faster, go faster, go faster.
Jeez.
But Corey, so those who don't know, Corey is your brother, and he was doing like, I was 13 or 1400 watts, and you came by at like sustained 1700 watts.
Yeah.
And then you just burst people's dreams all around the internet watching that video. Because there's no way, like, Corey's faster than most people, and then you're on Corey's wheel to spin around, which is, we'll get all into this, but.
Yeah.
Hunter goes second in our leadout train. So everyone has position, like same thing as basketball. The way we look at our team and the way we're trying to build our team is that everybody has positions, right? Like you have a center, you have your forwards, and then you have your guards. And it's the same thing. Like me and Corey play the sprinters. Then there's the two all-arounders that we usually put in the middle. So that's typically Scott Law and Tyler Williams. And Scott Law is a sprinter. He's literally, I've raced against him, and he's beaten me before. So and then Tyler has just like this long drawn out power. If you go watch our Tor Marietta video, he just rides this massive gear. He'll ride the rotation all the way down to one lap to go, and then he'll just sprint in this massive gear, and it looks like he's not going that fast. But when you step out into the wind after being behind him, it's like he's going really fast. So we have those two guys in front of us, and then Hunter, and then like a Corey Lockwood. So it's like the guy that was leading out in that video goes like he's going with like 2 laps to go or something.
I like that analogy. So center would be high FTP, probably big diesel.
Yeah,
like good draft.
Mm-hmm.
A bigger rider, and then sprinters would be poppy kind of guard.
Yeah. So you want to have TT guys that are just holding big power, and they can if you have 2 of those guys, if you can get 2 of those guys, their power is smooth. It's going to be, higher FTP. It's not going to be, they can go toward the front. They can do more of the workload as you're bringing the race down to like 3 laps to go. And then you want to have 2 all-arounders, and all-arounder guys are like, Corey's even an all-arounder, right? Like Corey's an all-arounder. Scott is turning into more of an all-arounder, but it's basically guys that can ride the breakaway. They can do the FTP, but they're still sprinting over like 20 watts per kilo or something, 22 watts per kilo. And then you have your sprinters, and then you have your sprinters that sit behind. And that on our team right now, that typically has to do with like who's in the least amount of shape. like that's all that is like, okay, well, you can't help, like we'll rotate with 5 guys and 1 guy will sit on and be the sure thing. And typically that's the guy that has the least amount of shape. So
since we're on it, John, can we jump into this? I know it's jumping around our dock, but
let's jump straight in.
So
yeah.
So I'm going to ask questions. Imagine none of us have the tactics that you guys have at Legion. Why would you want a center, a high FTP rider, like on the front doing a lot of watts way before the sprint even starts, or with, let's say, 10 laps to go? Like, what does Legion do at 10 laps to go?
At 10 laps to go, we should have already gathered at the front as a team. It takes a while. Like, I feel like sometimes people think it's like just comes together. Like, no, like people are all over the place. And to ride as a team, you can't start riding. You can't start setting tempo until you guys are together, right? So we start gathering at the front with maybe 15 laps to go. And then by the time 10 laps rolls around, everybody should have been there, have like relaxed for a second. And then when we hit the front, we go to control. So 10 laps to go, you go to control. And that's when it's amazing to have those higher FTP riders, because they'll take, like, Corey Lockwood will take like lap pulls. And when he's taking those lap pulls, it not only allows for everybody behind him, the whole team, to get into the mindset of, okay, like that, those final seconds of breathing, like they know what's coming, like we're about to start rotating through. We got to control the road. We got to know where most of our guys spend the whole race understanding where the speed is coming from in the corners. And once they understand that, when we start riding the front at 10 laps to go, we're not riding so fast that we're hurting ourselves, right? We're riding fast enough where people in the back don't really want to attack, and controlling the corners, right? So if we go around a left-hand corner and it's maybe like 300 meters out of like turn 2, we're going into turn 3. And every lap that we've been riding the race, like the momentum comes on the outside at like 25 meters before the corner. Like it's our team's job to make sure that we take up space in the road. So you'll see, like, we'll ride the inside, we'll protect the inside, and then right before the corner, the train will start to move to the right, but it staggers, right? It's not like the whole train moves into a single line to the right side of the course. No, like everyone will stagger, and we call it taking up space, taking up road. And then what that does is, like, the thought is, if our team is filling up all of those spaces where you would want to put your bike, coming from behind and trying to use that momentum, and there's nowhere to go, then you have to stay behind. And then as we come out of the corner, they just basically file back into a line.
Yes, you guys do that really well. And it prevents people from coming on the inside of you too, right?
Right, because we don't swing from the inside of the course to the outside of the course until it's like an uncomfortable spot that if you were to dive the inside, you would basically hit the corner on the inside of the corner, which no one wants to do. No one wants to do.
How much work is that to train that into riders, Justin? And what I'm getting at is the ability to recognize where momentum comes from on the course, the proper race line, then how to take it up. Is that something that you have to teach people, or you're selecting athletes that already have found it? And if so, how do they develop it?
It's hard to teach. It's hard to teach because you're no longer riding as an individual. You have to think about what the 5 guys behind you are doing and where they're going to end up, right? So it's really hard to teach. We're just lucky enough, like Hunter Grove Corey's been racing with Hunter Grove since they were I think 14 or something, right? Or 13. So like they just have it, you know. Diego's younger, but he's been a fast learner. Me and Scott raced on Silence together. Like, you know, we raced in 2016, 17. Yeah, 2016, 17. So we have experience together. And even the year before that, he raced on some Australian team. And that was the year that we were going back and forth and beating each other. But they understood it. You know what I mean? He already understood what the system looked like and felt like. So it's a lot of guys that have experience. We teach guys. But I think that's about culture. The culture within the team is what's important. If guys understand what's going on, and you have, 4 out of 5 guys are doing it right, 4 out of 6 guys are doing it right, that's the best environment to learn in, right? It comes pretty fast.
So let's say it's 10 laps to go to 5 laps to go, and you guys are going hard. You're not hurting each other, the team, but somebody does do attacks. Like I've seen this in your video. Someone does do a flyer. How do you guys respond? What do? Do you try to cover it right away or what?
No, typically that another big FTP guy, Tyler or Corey Lockwood or someone or Hunter, right? They'll basically, you don't change what you're doing. We'll continue to control the road. And once one of those guys touch the front, they'll lift the pace a little bit. They won't lift it to where we're hurting, because what happens is when guys are riding at that FTP for 5 laps or 6 laps or whatever, when we're getting down to those lower laps, the worst thing you can do is change the speed of what the group is doing, right? Too drastically. So Corey Lockwood is capable of riding harder than most of the guys. So if he were to just go and chase frantically when we got attacked, he could blow the team up. He could blow me up for sure. And I'm sitting at the back.
What sort of wattage is he? Just to give like some numbers for an example, he can just ride at like 450, right?
He can just ride at 450. Him and Tyler, man. Tyler just did 450 in the Joe Martin time trial.
It's just that's insane. So like that's why if he lifts it just a bit, it's going to be really hard to get away from you guys, because try riding, even at a brake effort, then try sustaining above 450 after a brake effort to get away from an already fast moving team. Like that's going to be extremely tough.
Right. We're riding the course like really fast. We're taking up good parts of the road. And another thing it does when we're taking up parts of the road that we're like kind of controlling the race, it only typically allows for like 2 or 3 people to attack. And then you're coming from like 10 back, because it's like our 6 guys. There's the other like 4 sprinters that are fighting to be behind our train. So like if you're going to attack our team, you have to come from like 10 back, right? So that's already, it's not only is it like having to attack and then sustain an effort, it's like you got to attack before you even get a gap. It's maybe like you got to put 2 seconds into us or 3 seconds into us before you even get past the front of the train.
Something I noticed really about you guys. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Amber.
I was just going to say, and like, then you're looking at like 1 or 2 riders up against a whole team, which that's tough. Like, I don't care how strong you are. That is a tough ask.
One thing I've seen you guys do a great job of too. So at a number of races, and the most recent example is Valley of the Sun this year. When you guys were riding in that race, you were extremely vocal. Meaning that like you were communicating openly with the team all throughout the race. It was like, and if you were just a fan sitting by the side of the course, you could hear what was going on. And I don't see that happening with a lot of teams. So how do you manage the in-race communication, and what sort of things do you want to call out?
Dude, so first, Valley of the Sun was like such a horrible race for us. It was too many guys. We just had too many guys because it was the beginning of the season. We didn't have a team camp, so we kind of used that as like, let's get everybody together and go do a race. And we just got it totally wrong, man. Like Lance didn't know what lap we were on or something, so he pulled off early. Tyler had to do a full lap pull, and then I was out of shape. So like we came out of the corner, and I had just enough to get Corey up to speed, and then he came by me so fast. I just sat down because I was like, oh my God, if he's going that fast, everyone's going that fast. And then after the race, he's like, dude, you got to sprint to the line. Like you would have got second. And I was like, dude, I wasn't going to get second, I promise. So the communication is extremely important. That's something that has to be taught too, actually. Funny enough, like it's hard to get guys, because when your heart rate is at 180 beats per minute, it's hard for you to think about anything. And saying stuff a lot of the time is just taking energy away, and it's going to drive your heart rate a little bit higher. So you got to have the fitness to be able to communicate effectively. We have radios, but the radios aren't always the clearest. So like the best form of communication is when you're next to your guy, you touch him or you let him know you're there, you're right up next to him, and you basically just are bouncing ideas off each other, essentially. You're like, okay, this is what's happening. This is speed we're going. It happens with me and Hunter a lot, just because we know, like Hunter knows the feel of races really well. So we always we find each other like 15 minutes in, and I was like, and we'll be like, yeah, nothing's going anywhere today. And then I'll just follow him around because he's smooth. And we both have the understanding that, like, all right, there's a pretty good chance that nothing's going to go anywhere. So that communication and knowing where your teammates are, understanding what they're doing, understanding how they're feeling and what they can actually get from you. Like, to me, being a good leader on the team is understanding what kind of day your guys are on, and getting the most out of it, not having this expectation of what you think they should be doing. And then when they can't do it, then you're pissed off, right? No, like, that's not what it's about. Winning races is about taking what you have and making a cake out of it.
One point
that's a soundbite, just so you know.
For sure. That's a good clip right there. That was
we got
awesome.
a lot of them already.
Are you ever worried, or do you ever not say things because you're worried about competition hearing it? Or do you value that just the same? Do you want them to hear what you're going to do?
I think it's less about, so when we're in the race, it's less about like what we're gonna do. And like typically like with the win, like maybe one or two people will hear it, and that's typically fine. Sometimes I'll say something because someone can hear it, and that kind of throws them off. Because if I'm telling Hunter to like, oh yeah, Hunter, like I want you to counter this attack, right? If he counters it, then it's great that someone goes with them, right? The whole peloton's not hearing. It's probably going to be like one or two people, and if they're of sound mind to even do anything about it or go with him, then it, that's good. But typically people aren't. Like, everyone's suffering, right? And like a lot of people haven't learned to suffer and think.
Yeah, it's a skill.
Good point.
So I want to keep stepping into the Legion train, going to the sprint. When you're getting down to those final laps, I think watching your videos, there is a time when you guys do respond, and I hear you yell up, up, up.
Yeah.
How do you decide in those final laps? When do you actually try to match pace? Like, I think you guys, like, how do you decide when to say up? What are you looking for?
And so up is just it's just like a raising of, it's more of a like pay attention. They know what to do. It means to celebrate, to accelerate. It means someone's coming. So when I yell up, it means like either accelerate, it means either close the corner, or it means it's like there's a team coming over us, right? Like typically if it's like one person or two people, I'm not gonna say anything unless we're like going into like the last lap and someone is hitting over the top of us. Like if it's like let's say it's 5 laps to go, 3 laps to go, and there's a team challenging us, then I'll say up because they have to accelerate, right? The thing you do is lose control of the front of the race, lose control of the course. Once you lose control of the course, then your guys get scrambled, right? Because everyone's at different, not only fitness levels, but everyone's also of different skill, right? And like while me and Corey, and Scott can pretty much ride next to and through anyone, like Lockwood cannot, Tyler cannot, Hunter can also, so that gives us 4. But those guys, like those bigger guys, more important pieces, they can't ride through people like that. So we have to make sure that we stay in control of the front of the race.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So then you're coming in, let's do a couple scenarios. One is a drag race and another is a corner with, say, you have 200 or 300 meters to go after the corner. Drag race, how do you guys decide when different riders pull off and when to sprint and who's going to sprint?
We have a cheat code. His name is Corey Lockwood. so like in a typical lead out, you'll start, like people will start their last pulls. In the typical lead out, people will start their last pulls going into like a lap and a half to go, right? Like typically when we're on sidelines, so everyone will start the last pull. Like Hunter used to be one of the first guys, still one of the first guys, but he used to be the first guy to go. So his job would be to get the team from the last corner or the second to last corner, going into 1 lap to go to turn 1. Right. So that was his job. He would go turn, let's say it's a 4-corner course. He would go turn 3 through turn 4. He would have to go as hard as he can, or he would have to like wind it up out of turn 4, take it through the home straight. He'd take it through the finish line. And when he got to the finish line, he would have to go all out to turn 1 so that the speed is up. Right. And then the rest of the lead out train starts. So the next guy has to go faster for shorter. So he has to get us to the back straight. So he has to go through turn 1, or he has to go through turn 1 or right out of turn 1 into the back straight. Then the next guy goes down the back straight. Then the next guy goes into turn 3 because we have to win that corner. It's vital, right? And then it leaves us with two other guys, right? So that guy wins turn 3. He holds on. He tries to get us onto the home straight, and then we have 2 sprinters left. In a drag race situation, like Marietta is a drag race.
Oh, we lose his audio?
Yeah, we lost your audio.
I think we got it again.
I think we got it.
Oh, can't hear us. I want to know what happens.
So much suspense for those that are listening.
Building it up.
I know. For those that are listening to the podcast, Justin just he's fixing his mic right now. So I want to ask too, Nate, about like, because it seems like their job isn't done once they do their poll. because they like, there's like strategies thereafter too that they do, which is pretty exciting stuff. We actually tried to get a microphone overnighted to Justin, and we couldn't do it in time. So, so darn, it would have solved something like this. On YouTube right now, we have a ton of people that are jumping in and asking a ton of questions, and hopefully all the questions that you're submitting, we'll be able to cover the majority of these. As I'm looking through them, they're more or less representative of what we have in our notes and from a lot of other people that have jumped in on Instagram and submitted questions there too, which is pretty good there. So, so hopefully we can get into asking a lot of them. And Nate, there are a lot of people saying that, of course, you're going to be the one asking questions here because you're going for your Cat 1 upgrade.
Hey, I'm asking it for all you all too, because y'all want to know this too. The exact same information.
We all have the same questions, right?
Yeah, you're just afraid to ask.
That's it. Justin, I think that your mic is working again, or you have a mic working.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Okay.
It's perfect.
Let me see. Let me make sure that it's still the same mic. Yeah, same mic. All right. Let's try this again. Okay. Let's try this again.
So we left off on the finish straight. You have 2 sprinters left, and the whole rotation.
And Marietta, we came out of the last corner, and we had Diego had taken us into turn. Diego had taken us into turn 3. It was a short straight from turn 3 to turn 4, so he kind of could kind of relax. Once you win that corner, he kind of just tries to be smooth on the pedals. He uses the momentum to stay on top of the power, on top of the speed, and then he just got us into turn 4 because he already won turn 3. There was no real space to move between turn 3 and turn 4. We come out of turn 4, and then we have Tyler, we have Corey, and we still have me left. We still have 3 guys. So what happens with Corey Lockwood is that Lockwood is able to ride so fast from like 3 laps ago to 2 laps ago. So instead of having the typical lead out situation where you had Hunter going from like a lap and a half to like turn 1, you have Lockwood going from like 3 laps to go to like 1 lap to go. And then when that happens, like not only does everyone get to rest because he's doing, he'll do like 450, 500, 550, and then he'll pull off. And he'll do that for 2 laps after riding the rotation and taking the bulk of the rotation work from like 15 minutes out. So he'll do like he'll do 15 minutes leading the front of the team, like taking the biggest chops, and then he'll do a 2-lap pull from 3 laps to go to 1 lap to go. And then our lead out starts. So we usually have 3 sprinters coming out of last corner because Lockwood just takes such a massive pull.
Jeez.
We're going to talk about how to beat you guys later on because right now I can't. I got one idea, but I've seen 2 where I don't know if this is on purpose, but in your videos, do you and Corey ever like work together where one of you will sprint less? I've kind of seen someone try to like take an inside line and maybe one of you like won't sprint as hard then because that person gets stuck.
Yeah.
And the other one comes around. Does that happen? Do you guys do that?
Yeah. So it's just about knowing where people are, like knowing where momentum is taking people. So there's a sprint like a CBR, which is just a local race that we do. And there's this kid, he's like really fast. I think it was Ime. It might have been, there's 2 brothers, Ime and Alma. But they're pretty fast, and they are those in-betweeners where they have like pretty big FTPs, but they also can do like 1,400 watts in the sprint. So there's a sprint that happens where I'm leading Corey out, and I could feel, I think it's Ime coming over my left shoulder, but we're going into a right-hand corner. So like, where are you going to go after you get out of the right-hand corner, left, right? So I hear him coming, so I accelerate just enough to like stop him on my hip. And then we're in the corner, and as we go to the corner, I just like push him out. And there's nowhere for him to go. He has to now wait. And now he's boxed in between me and Corey because Corey understands that I'm going toward the curb. So I'm on the curb now in the gutter, and Corey's next to me. And even if he had any chance of winning, his door just got closed because he didn't get past me before the exit of the corner. Right. So it's like it's all about knowing what your competition is doing, what they're thinking, and how fast you can adjust to kind of those situations, right? Sprinting is not all about top speed, man. Like I always talk about that. Like I have a good max power, but like I don't I try not to just use that for winning races. Like when you can start to think out sprints and understand what's happening, you become way more effective, and your like percentage of winning goes up way more.
That's awesome. I think I don't know if there's any. Most teams would just be like, let's all sprint as hard as we can, and then you might drag other people to the line. I saw it too when you guys did a video with NorCal Cyclists where Jeff Linder was on Corey's wheel, and Corey just sat up, and that ruined Jeff's sprint. Which did he do that on purpose?
Yeah.
Can you explain that outcome too? Because that's super interesting.
So Corey was, we talked about it a little bit. So Corey was very conscious of where Tyler was. And this is the kind of thing that's going on in our head. We're in NorCal. Tyler's from NorCal. So we were going to work for him. Corey, out of the last corner, we had talked it throughout the race. I had went like, oh, okay, like this corner, you got to win this corner. If you win this corner, that's a little bit far to the line. But Corey had just had a very good idea of where Tyler was and the momentum that he was coming with. So Corey funny enough, they had caught Tyler maybe like a K before the finish. He was off the front. And when they came out of the last corner, no one went hard enough. And Corey looked back, I guess, I don't know, maybe psychic. And he knew Tyler was coming with momentum. And he was like, it's like an uphill sprint. So he's like, no one's gonna beat Tyler in this sprint. So Corey set up because he said Tyler had so much momentum. He could see and feel that Tyler had so much momentum that like if he would have went, he would have just drugged the group that he was in the front of that race up to speed, right? And then he was like, and like maybe I would have won, but like the momentum that Tyler was coming with, I was for sure he was gonna win. Yeah. So it's like that teamwork where he's like, I'll let Tyler go past, and then like hopefully he wins, and if he doesn't, I'll try to clean up, right?
Yeah, that's such a cool. I just want to make sure everyone understands that Corey could have tried to sprint for second or winning, but then he could have brought other people with him because Tyler was in such a great position. He sat up and effectively killed other people's race behind him. Yeah.
He basically closed everyone's door that was behind him, and like expecting like, oh, Corey's a sprinter, he's gonna go for it. I'm gonna sit behind him. It's like that. It's like they never would have thought that he would have like not sprinted so his teammate could have won, right? And it's like I think that's where we do that really well, is that we are like all for the team. It's like all about the team. Like we're trying to win. We win. Me and Corey win a lot of races because we're the ones that the races suit more often than not. But like there's so many examples of like same thing in with San Rafael last year. Me and Corey are in the field. We have 4 guys in the breakaway, and people are still like, "You guys gonna chase?"
No.
And we're like, "No, we're not gonna chase, man. What's wrong with you guys? We have 4 people in the break. Our whole team is in the breakaway."
I want to go, before we switch gears, I want to do one more scenario. It's a corner, and it's a very short sprint after that. And what I've seen you do is you leave a gap. Like you'll leave a gap on somebody else. Yeah. Why do you do that?
Hold on.
Justin's fixing his setup again.
Well, it's one thing if my mic dies. It's another thing if my computer dies. I leave that gap. It's from the track. So on the track, momentum is everything, right? Like your gearing doesn't change. So if you get the sprint wrong, there's like it's over. There's a couple little like tricks that you can use to kind of use momentum. Cycling is all about momentum. Sprinting is all about momentum. So what the gap does is it does 2 things. It allows me to, when someone like say we're in a sprint, right? And I come out of a corner, I'll leave a gap. It allows me room to sprint into the draft and get that little bit extra acceleration because I'm in the draft, and then move to a side of whatever the person is in front of me. It allows for me to, we talked about blocking people in and like that getting boxed in. It allows for you to not be boxed in, right? So if you have that gap, if someone comes up next to you, if you feel someone coming up next to you, you can accelerate again into the draft and then move out. You have space, right? So having that gap is about controlling your own destiny. It's about putting yourself in a position where you're A, not getting boxed in, and B, you get to shoot into a draft, which gives you another, like, on your acceleration, gives you another 30% into that draft, and then you can move to a side before you can step out. It hurts my heart, I'm telling you. It hurts my soul when I see people like step out into the wind, like you're like riding and you like step out into the wind and then you start sprinting. You're like, like it's
Don't watch my race videos then. You'll die of a broken heart.
I have one that's worse, where I went out and then I went back in.
And that happens. There's races that I haven't been the fastest person in the sprint. I just used the draft right, used the momentum right. And that allowed me to get a win or a better result, right? So it's about learning how to use that draft safely, right? Like I'm not like swinging out on people while I'm in the draft, but the gap is literally so that I'm not gonna crash, right? Because I'm looking at everything that's happening around me. I'm looking back, so that gap gives me space to like look back and not make, not fall over the wheel. It allows me to run into a draft if someone decides to try to box me in. And then that in turn gives me a little bit of extra energy and makes my speed greater when I do hit the wind. So I'm carrying momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expand on that just for a little bit? I just want to step back. Like you said, it's about doing it safely, and you guys are really aggressive in terms of your positioning and your tactics, but you're doing it in a way that's both safe and respectful of the competition. So do you mind just expanding on that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I talked about this a little bit on my like a little daily show or my like little Tuesday show that happened on Wednesday. Fighting for positioning when you have no objective at the front is you're closing your own door. Like our job is to close your door. You're helping us close your door by fighting for position at a time where you're not, like, if you're not going to attack, you don't need to be at the front. If your objective is not to go off the front, you don't need to be at the front. If you're not supposed to be chasing for your team, you're not supposed to be you don't have to be at the front. You can be, but you don't have to be. It's not the end of the world. I see people fighting for their lives with like 50 minutes to go. And I'm like, are you going to attack? And they're like, no. And I'm like, so you're just being an idiot. And they're like, what? And then they want to get defensive. And I'm like, dude, just ride with good momentum, be safe, be conscious of the people around you. Like, we're like, hitting the ground sucks. Like, crashing really sucks. And I look at people ride sometimes, and it doesn't seem like they understand that that crashing sucks. So know when to fight for position. Like for us, like if it's 5 laps to go, or it's 10 laps to go, and I'm like, I have to be at the front. Like, of course I'm gonna fight you for position, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm the guy that's like pushing people with like 15 minutes to go. I'm like, all right, take the wheel, because then I don't have to accelerate back to the wheel. I can feel that gap with the body, and I'm like, yes, it's great. So yeah, being safe is extremely important. Like, that's first and foremost. You got to be safe. We ride aggressively when we have to, but only when we have to. And 90% of the time, we ride aggressive when someone is fighting us for no reason. Like if it's someone we never see, like we've never seen in the sprint before, and they're fighting for the front with like 5 laps to go, we're gonna flip them. Like we're gonna be like, get out of here. Mm-hmm. Like what? Like what are you doing? Because they're making it dangerous for us, right? So we're like, and it's funny, a lot of times people will complain to the officials like, oh, they hurt me. And it's like it's because when someone is not used to being in the position at the front of that lead out train or at the front of the field, and we're watching them do stuff that's like scary, right? We're watching them do something where we understand that this person doesn't quite know what they're doing. We want to get them out of the way because they're making it dangerous for everyone. If a crash happens at the front of the field, that's dangerous for everyone, right? So it's like it's just like picking your battles, really. Like you got to pick your battles. Like, and if you're a sprinter and that's what you want to do, you have to fight. Like that's a part of it. If you don't want to like sprint, if you don't want to bump, if you don't want to like crash, like maybe sprinting's not your thing. Maybe you should do time trials. But you have to understand going into it, you know what I mean? Like you have to understand going into it that sprinting is one of the most dangerous parts of cycling, right? And like obviously you build that respect, and once you build that respect, like man, there's guys that ride on my hip all the time that I know. There's guys that ride into me all the time that I know. Like Shane Klein's a kid from Pennsylvania. He's like, I grew up racing with him my whole life. And whenever he's around me, I just know Daniel Holloway is another guy. Like he'll ride into me, he'll ride in front of me, and we'll like, there's a respect that happens, right? Where it's like, if my team is in front of me, he knows I'm going to come back to my team. But if he comes in a corner or something because it's chaotic behind us, which it usually is, like I know that like I don't have to accelerate, I don't have to do anything different because as soon as I like ride back up next to him, he knows I'm coming and he's going to let me in. And like that's a respect thing. If I don't have a team, then we'll just switch in like a position and we'll try to protect each other. Like when UHC was dominating, and me and Holloway were trying to figure out ways to beat them. Like we got to a point where I was like, dude, I'm not gonna fight you. Like if you have the legs, like let me know and I'll ride behind you, right? Or like that last exchange before we know they're gonna hit, I'll make sure that you have the wheel in front of me, right? And I'll try to sprint from behind you. And it was the only way to even have a chance against them, right? The only way to have a chance against them was like if the faster guys weren't fighting with each other. So yeah, this being safe is important. Knowing when to fight is extremely important throughout the whole race, right? Like racing is what you do from the first lap matters on the last lap.
Yeah.
How do you decide
So
when to sprint? Like when to go? Do you mark it out ahead of time?
You have a general idea, but that all is calculated by how fast the race is, how heavy the course is, where the wind is coming from, how the barriers are set up. It's like there's like a ton of things that you have to calculate to know when to sprint. But the general sense is like you'll know, like if it's like 100 meters out of a corner, you have to win that last corner. So you got to be sprinting, and like 200 meters is the range where like if you go, you're in a good position to like at least have a chance. It's still a little bit early, but 200 meters is like the golden lock zone, right? You want to be coming off the wheel. Perfect case scenario, you want to be coming off the wheel at like 100 watts, or sorry, at 100 meters. That would be perfect case situation. That never happens, right? That's happened to me a couple of times, and I have a lead out train. So what you want to do is like you want to go, okay, this is 200 meters. This is in the golden zone. Here's where the barriers are. If it's a tailwind or a crosswind or a headwind, like you got to figure out what side you need to be sprinting on or what's the optimum side to sprint on. But it's always evolving, man. It's evolving every lap. It's evolving in the sprint. You can't decide in your head, I'm going to go here on to the left side of the barriers, because you get in that situation and someone would have had the same idea. Then what? So it's like this very dynamic thought process of like, where's the barriers at? Where's the wind at? You know, how far is it from the line? Is it uphill? Is it downhill? Because all of those factors play into when you need to open up. But for the most part, it's a feeling, right? Same thing with the gear. Like I never switch gears in a sprint. Like when I start my sprint, when I stand up to go, I'm already in the gear that I need to be in. Switching gears in the sprint, you know about this.
Justin watched Nate's sprint video, so yeah.
I wasn't switching gears there, but yeah.
You weren't, but that's what happened. So like you got to be super careful when you're. We practice a lot of cadence drills and stuff because we go from, I think my sprint goes from like 100 RPMs to like 135 or 140 RPMs, but that gives me that range, right, of like the initial jump to where I'm gonna how much I can accelerate. And once you're in a higher cadence at top speed, you can typically hold it longer, right? When you're in that big gear and you're fighting the bike, like once it goes, man. Like you can go from top speed to like nothing if you're in that massive gear. So we practice sprinting in a lighter gear. And choosing the sprint just comes with like a feeling of like how fast we're going. A lot of times if Corey's in front of me, like I'll have that gap on him and I won't open up until someone challenges me. So like until someone's next to me. And what happens is now there's a gap. Corey's on Tyler's wheel. They're in the draft and Tyler's dragging Corey up to speed. I'm a little bit in the wind, but I still have a little gap. So like if you want to come from behind us, you have to make up like 4 bike lanes, right? So you're going to make up 4 bike lanes to Corey Williams. I think Corey does like 24 point something watts per kilo or something crazy. He does like, he's 145 pounds. He does like 1,600 watts or something.
Jeez.
So it's like you not only do you have to overcome that at some point, you have to start in the wind because I'm gapping, right? So I'm gapping, I'm gonna drag race you to Corey's wheel. I'm getting the draft into Corey's wheel. Now you're on the outside trying to match my sprint and get and make up 4 bike lengths on Corey. It's impossible to do. Like in the last 200 meters, like I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't make up that space to Corey in 200 meters. So it's like that's why we've been so successful.
It doesn't sound fair.
I know, right?
By design.
And we should toward the end of this podcast, we should get into like Justin, because you said there's a way to beat you guys, so we'll get into that at the end of this one. But one of the questions that I want to ask along those lines that was submitted from somebody. Would you rather have, Justin, a 2,000 watt peak power or a 1,500 watt 10-second power? Granted, probably if you're hitting 2,000 watts, you can probably have 1,500, but assuming that like 15's your peak, but you can spread it for longer.
1,500 for longer.
Yeah.
It's winning sprints are about navigating the last laps. It's not about top power, man. Like it's not. I've won a lot of races. Where I didn't have the power. I was like, all right, well, I don't have the legs to win this. So off of like just speed. So I have to like know where to be. And if you look at a lot of the Pro Tour sprints, when they're coming in, like a lot of those guys are about the same speed, right? And it's all about like knowing where to be. It's all about what they did 5K before and the energy that they wasted 5K before. Like you don't need massive numbers. You just need to be really, really smart. And when you can start to rely on being smart rather than putting out the numbers, there's a few guys that put out the numbers that don't win races, man. They're out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I saw a video with Corey. I think he did 1,200 watts and he won a sprint. And someone on Instagram's like, why'd you only do that much? And he's like, that's all I could do. But he still won because of positioning. Like
your watts drop too, depending on how fast the lead out is. So like when I'm getting let out at 40 miles an hour, I'm not doing 1,800 watts. I'm doing like 15 or 1,600 watts because like I'm a human being. Like you can only you can only put out so much watts off of like 40 miles an hour. So like, you don't like, that's a misconception. You don't need the big numbers. It's great if you're capable of doing them, but learning how to sprint and understanding positioning is more important than putting out watts. If you can only do 1,000 watts, but you come out of a corner second and it's 100 meters out of that corner, you're probably going to get second or you're probably going to get second or third. Like you're not going to do any worse than fifth, right? And that's someone that only can do 1,000 watts. So there's 2 sprints happening in a race. There's a sprint for positioning and understanding where you need to be, and then there's a sprint for the line. I would rather win the sprint for positioning because that gives you a way better chance of winning the sprint for the line.
That's smart.
What,
Improve your
bites?
odds. Yeah, they're so good. They're so fantastic. All right, let's get into Nate. Did you have something? I was going to get into.
No, I was going to say, do you want to switch issues?
Yeah, for sure. A couple things. I want to shift it more to like your personal training, and then we'll get into kind of jumping backward from what we were planning on, but into more of like your career and everything else and everything that you've done leading up to it. But for your personal training, do you do one? I think I've seen the question like 10 times already in the live chat. Do you do strength training in addition to training on the bike? And if anybody's watched Payson McKelvin's Quarantine Companion podcast with you, then they'd see. But do you do strength training?
So I did it for a long time. I did it for like most of my career. And then I started getting old. And I was like, oh man. I was like, how can I just feel better, feel stronger, get more muscle engagement? Because that makes you more solid, more faster on the bike. So I started doing a lot of stuff, but honestly, like my body is like, I'm so weak. Like my core is so weak that like I do like a lot of plyometrics and a lot of like body weight stuff. I'm not like lifting weights, you know what I mean? Like I'm doing like when I'm doing squats, I'm just like doing squats, and I just have like this routine that I go to that it makes me it's more about like core stability than it is about like getting ripped. I do like yoga and core stability. Those are like my Those are like my off the bike stuff. But I think that strength training is really good. I just didn't get into it young enough to really like be into it. Like I don't want to go lift weights, man. Like I want to put a yoga mat in my living room and do like some planks and push-ups and just like I keep it really simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Justin, how old are you?
31.
How much do you weigh and what's your height?
I weigh 175 pounds. I'm 6'1".
6'1".
Cool.
Then what about nutrition? Does it change when you go in season and out of season, or what general guidelines do you follow?
Chipotle. Yeah, it changes a little bit. When I'm in the off season, I can actually eat a lot better. Corey cooks all the time. I live with Corey, my brother. He cooks all the time, and he doesn't eat leftovers. So like whenever there's food left over, like I just like will make the most of it and I'll eat that. So I get to eat way better in the off season. But when we're racing, man, like seriously, like there's so much going on, and there's so much there's so much like kind of randomness that we tend to end up at Chipotle a lot.
For sure. And that's like the perfect roommate that just cooks food and then doesn't want the leftovers. That's like,
that's amazing.
I wanted that in college. Yeah.
How does your training change from like off season? So you're talking about, your nutrition's a little bit different because when you get in the races and it's really chaotic, how do you change your training between, the build up for the season and then when you're in season?
Yeah, so you're doing like we start racing we're fortunate enough to start racing pretty early in California, so we'll do like big volume stuff in the off season. Like for me, I don't need to like Corey will ride super hard. Like he's doing like 250 out the door, which is like my like 380 or 390 or 290 or 280 or 290. And he'll do it out the door, and he just wants to. He'll just ride there all day, every day, and then he'll take his recovery days. I'm a little bit different. I try to do that kind of training with him, like maybe like that's like sweet spot, right? Like I try to do that maybe twice with him a week, and then after that, I just need to like get like basic endurance, like 200 watts average, like kind of just like cruising along high cadence. Like that works really well for me. So in the off season, we're just doing bigger volume. We try to do I try to do 2 to 3 sprints a ride when I'm training, just to keep those muscles engaged. Because this is actually a thing. There's nothing worse than like not sprinting for like 3 months and then trying to sprint. Like everything feels wrong. It feels like you're gonna pop your like shoulder out. Like so learning that over time, we'll do like a couple sprints, just like every ride, just like even if it's 80%, just making sure that the form is still good. You're still working on the form. You're still engaging a lot of the muscles, and you're keeping that high muscle recruitment as far as like what it takes to get that sprint, get power out of that sprint. And then when we start getting in the season, like I said, we start working early. We'll start mixing it up, and we'll bring the volume down a little bit. And early, we'll bring it down just a little bit, and we'll get into like a lot of like really fast group rides. And we'll give ourselves objectives on group rides. Like we'll ride to this ride Montrose, which is 2 hours away from us. We'll do the ride, which is 2 hours. And then it ends an hour and a half away from the house. So then we're riding back home, right? So we'll ride over at like 200 watt average. We'll do the ride, and I'll be like, all right, today I'm just going to sit in. I'm not going to do anything until the final climb. I'm going to ride the final climb as hard as I can. And then I'm just going to spin. We're just going to spin home, right? And a lot of time that's the objective for me, because I'm just not strong enough to do like Corey does. Corey would just like ride the front of the group ride. So I'm like, oh my God, who's on the front? And I like look, and I just see his little head.
Dude, I stalked Corey, and I think he's like 5.4 to 5.6 watts per kilo, and then sprints at 20 watts per kilo. Put that in everyone's mind. Like that's why he's such a weapon too, especially if there's some hills.
Yeah, he's unbelievable right now. He actually, so that the Joe Martin, there was like a test time trial for the Joe Martin like virtual race, and the time trial was like 4 miles or something, and I think he did I think Tyler did something crazy like 440, but I think Corey did like 380 or something.
Jeez,
so,
wow.
Like, he's not everyone like has like tagged him or given him this title of sprinter, but he's very much an all-arounder. Like he's not he's not fun to ride with.
That's awesome. I want to do a video at some point. If you're up for this, Justin, it'd be awesome to have you kind of do what we did, but get a secondary take on Nate's sprint video. That would be awesome.
Yeah, dude.
It was funny, like even with your hands, how you were talking about like the sprint, how you're moving your hands in a circle, and like that's like there's so many technique things that I feel like we'll probably save for when you can actually see what we're talking about, because I bet it'll make more sense.
Dude, you know those stair stepper machines where you'll pull down with this hand and then push down with your left foot, and there's like a rhythm to it. That's what sprinting is. It's like it's more of like this, like you're doing this like when I'm pulling with my right hand, I'm like pushing with my left hand and creating this connection between my like the full cross of my body, and that allows you to use some of your body weight, right? But like that's where that circle comes in. It's like it comes as like this. It's very much a technique, and there's a rhythm to it.
Should we, now that you mention it, can you break down how to sprint?
Sure.
I'm asking for
try.
a friend. Yeah.
I can try. So beyond like the understanding positioning, beyond the like making sure that you have room to move when you're going to shoot a gap, and you're only going to shoot a gap in the last like 200 meters. You're not doing that like with like a lap to go, right? You're just wasting energy. Beyond all of that, when you learn all of that, the actual technique to sprinting, it's like you're not moving your arm side to side. You know, if you're moving your arm side to side, there's a lot of dead spots in that. And like if you have dead spots, then that makes you dangerous, and you're not getting the most power out of what you're doing. So you want to like bend your elbows, and you want to be able, when you bend your elbows, you want to be able to kind of like control some of that up and down, right? That happens. You want to get your head lower. You don't want to be like Cav low, because like that's hard to control. Like Caleb Ewing and Cav have this like really low sprint style, but they have shorter arms. So like if you don't I don't have short arms. My wingspan's at 6'3". So like if you have shorter arms, you can get down and do that. But like for me, I can't. So I'll try to. You got to bend your elbows, because that gives you a little bit more control over the bike. And then you're like making the circle movement where the circular movement with your hands and the bars, where when you're pulling with your right hand, you're pushing with your left foot. And when you're pulling with your left arm, you're pushing with your right foot. And it should feel smooth. Like I always compare it to that like machine, because like as a kid, a lot of people jump on that machine because it's fun. But there's a rhythm to it to get the fan going like really fast, right? Like if you're just doing it and like you're doing, but if you really want to get it going fast, there's like a motion to it. There's a rhythm to it. And you just have to practice that. It's just practice. Like I think I've probably done like tens of thousands of sprints, like for like speed signs, because that's how we practice. We sprint for speed signs because there's not enough town signs.
How did you? Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, what you just said, I think I've been doing it wrong this whole time. So if I'm pushing down with my left foot, where should I be? Which hand do I pull up with?
You're right. Your left foot. So like it should feel like that, right? It's in a circle, but it's like you're coming over. So as you're pulling over with this hand, you want your right foot to be going down on the pedal stroke. You know what I mean?
And it evolves constantly.
I've been doing it wrong.
And it evolves constantly, right? All throughout the whole pedal stroke. It's always shifting and
right.
Yeah. So Justin, getting into that very thing, how did you find out that you were a good sprinter? Like when did that first happen for you?
I knew I was a good sprinter before I like raced bikes. I used to race my cousins like around the block on BMX and like our mountain bikes. So, and I was always pretty fast. Like a lot of my cousins are older than me. So when I could beat them, right, when I was, I don't know, like 10 years old and like, 12 before I started cycling, I was like, oh man, I just knew I loved the bike. I didn't know it was sprinting until I started racing. But I learned pretty early on in racing that I could travel across the ground faster than most people. And like, so that's how I shaped all of my racing, all of the tactics that I learned. It was like, how do I put people in the position where I can use my talent against them?
Yeah, that's a clever way to look at it. So you started. Well, actually, the story, like, so first of all, I guess going back even further, you're Belizean descent. Your family is from Belize. You grew up in South Central LA, right? And your dad was a cyclist though, and that's how you got into it. Is that right?
Yeah. I thought biking was a hobby. I was like, oh man, like I was like, man, like my dad's really healthy, man. He like rides all the time. Like he has this thing that he does all the time. And I've been to races when I was a kid because we used to do like Sunday fun days where like people would barbecue at races and we would go out. We actually want to try to get back to that. But I would go out to races, but I didn't understand what was going on because I didn't see it on TV or anything. Like it wasn't like basketball or football or like, I even like would watch like soccer and like tennis. Like there was all these other sports that weren't like major sports. They weren't massive, or like they are now. But I never saw cycling on TV. And I was like, oh, okay, like it's like a hobby and these guys are showing up and doing it for funsies, which is cool. But like my dad he raced for as long as I can remember, and then my on my mom's side she had all of her uncles like race bike, which I didn't even know until I was like maybe like 15 or something. Like I didn't even know like all of my mom's family cycles or they race.
So was cycling like a part of your culture growing up then, like within the family, within the neighborhood? Or was it a rare thing for somebody to be a cyclist growing up in South Central LA?
Yeah,
I don't know if Belize, for example, if cycling's big in Belize, I don't know.
It's massive. It's just soccer and cycling. And there's a race that goes on called cross country every year on Holy Saturday. And when I tell you the whole country is on the side of the road for this race, there's like thousands and thousands of people, all of the tourists that are on bus rides and everything, they all get pulled off the road and they all get out. And so like you're just riding through the country and every time you come to a different town, the whole town is just out watching the race, man. It's incredible. So yeah, it's a massive sport in Belize. It's like, that's why I think my dad started. My dad started riding because it was like so big. But when in LA, like it wasn't something that too many people were doing, right? Like, funny enough, my uncle used to own a barbershop and I used to go in there all the time and he had these trophies, right? These massive trophies, but they were so old. I'm like, bro, throw them away. I'm like, why do you have these old dusty trophies in your barbershop? And then I later learned that he had won that massive race in Belize and like he had held on to those trophies from like the 70s or something crazy.
Wow.
You know? So it's like that's how important it is to like the culture of Belize.
That's cool.
Wow.
That's awesome. I never knew that about Belize. That's super cool. When you so you started in more or less on the racing side. Did you start in track or did you start in road racing?
I started on the road actually. My dad made me ride the trainer for 2 months before he took me out for a ride. I tell that story all the time. He like made me, because he was like, if you're not serious, I'm not gonna like waste my time. Like if you don't want to do it, then like I'm not gonna share my passion with you.
He put a high bar,
dude. And I was and I was just looking for like some kind of I like was playing football and basketball at the time, and I was just looking for some kind of like common ground with my dad. Like we didn't like have anything to talk about. He's like, my dad grew up like basically on his own in Belize, and I grew up even though I grew up in the hood of LA, it's still LA, right? There's kids in Belize that don't have shoes, so it's just like it's just different, right? And we just didn't have anything in common when I was growing up until I started cycling. So it was like a way to connect with my dad. It was a way to explore something that I was like, I was really good in other sports. Like I was really good at football. I was really good at basketball. And I got to cycling and I was like terrible. Like I couldn't live with it. My pride wouldn't let me let it go. There was this kid, Alex Garcia, man, who was just like, he's tiny, So at the time, I'm like maybe like 5'7", and this kid Alex is like maybe 5 foot, maybe. And he's like, there's this group ride that we used to do, and like all the local pros used to show up to it. And this kid, I would watch this kid like ride around. He's like, I think Alex a year younger than me. I would watch this kid like ride around in this group ride, and I was like, I can do that. And I kid you not, like I would be so exhausted after like trying to stay in this group ride. Like I would like miss school the next day because I was so tired. Like I would like sleep. I'd like get done with the ride. I'd like fall asleep in the truck. I'd like get home. I'd like fall asleep on like the couch or something. And then I'd like get woken up in the morning to go to school. And I was like, nah, bro.
I got blown out the back of the group ride. That's awesome.
That was a standard of like what I came into cycling at, right? Like having this like vision that I'm going to be better than this kid because he's smaller than me. And then like other sports, when someone's smaller, like usually you have the upper hand, and like it's not like that at all in cycling. And then like that kid went on to win nationals like the next year. You know what I mean? So like my bar was set so high already. I was like, I'm gonna beat this kid's ass. And then we became really good friends. We became really good teammates. And like, yeah, the standard of like what I wanted to get out of the sport was just set super high because of Alex. So
that's cool. So when did you get your first like actual like contract on a team? Because I like just looking at the notes, you've ridden for a bunch of different teams, and people probably don't know. Like I'll just rip through really quick, but Rock Racing, which is like totally a team that everyone knows about from that era, right? Like totally unique look, like totally unique team. Trek Livestrong, for Astellas, for Silence, and for the Specialized Rocket Espresso team. And that was the one that was taking Red Hook crits and doing everything else there. So was Rock Racing like your first like team effort, or what came
I
before
signed
that?
with Rock Racing. I was still a junior when I signed with Rock Racing. I was like 17. I was like 16 turning 17 when I signed with Rock. And that was because Rasan had mentored me. Rasan Bahadi had mentored me my like whole career. You know, like my dad like would teach me everything that he knew. But like when he like passed me off to Rasan, he's like, all right, like Rasan was pro at that time. Excuse me, I think he was riding for like Mercury or Saturn. He was like riding for one of those massive teams. And he like passed me on to him. He's like, all right, go ride with this guy. And Rasan used to like literally like lead me out. So this ride that I'm talking about on Thursday, I did that. That's like one of the things that I don't think people know, right? Like everyone's like, oh yeah, like crits, like you're really good at crits. Like I love crits because I used to do 2 crits a week from like when I started riding at like 13 to like maybe like 25 or something. I would do these same 2 crits every week. Whenever I was in town, I would do these same 2 crits. So I've done like thousands of crits, and like people are like, why are you so good at crits? And I'm like, because I did it twice a week for like 15 years, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Second nature.
Yeah, exactly. So Rasan he's played like this massive role in just helping me and teaching me and guiding me in that.
So when you, I guess you spent some time over in Europe too, right? Was that when you were riding for Trek Livestrong, or was that when you were riding for Astellas?
No, I think I was still on Rock when that happened. So I rode for Rock for the entirety of the team, from like inception to like the massive like decline.
Implosion.
Yeah. And it was crazy because I was like, I was a baby of the team. I was always the youngest person on the team. And Rasan kind of like made sure, like Rasan really babied me a lot when I was on that team. I was asking him literally yesterday. I had a conversation with him because like we have a couple guys on our team that I have to figure out how they're like development riders, but they need race starts. And I was like, dude, how did I get race starts on Rock, man? I was like, I didn't deserve to go to any of those races, man. And he was like, just cut the check, bro. Just cut the check.
That's awesome.
And it's funny, right? Because like when you're a kid, I like had all this confidence, and I was like, yeah, I'm ready to go. But dude, I was getting like ridden out of the back of races. You know what I mean? Like I was getting like torched. And now that I'm like, I have my team, I'm like, oh man, like I got to get these guys starts. And he's, dude, you got to just got to just put them in. You got to make space for them. Because the reality of the situation is that you have to be at races. You have to gain that experience to get good at them, right? So I rode for Rock from when it started to when it ended. After it ended, I won under 23 nationals like the year before it ended. So like the year that I was under 23 is when the team kind of like was going away. But it was lucky enough I had become really, really good friends with Taylor Finney. And I was like, oh, do I go to like Livestrong or do I go to like Garmin at the time, right? So I ended up going to Livestrong because I was like really good friends with Finney. So the last year that I was on Rock Racing, the only racing that I did was on the national team. And the only reason I raced on the national team was because Clay Worthington, who was the track coach, had said that the endurance guys need to go over to get some experience on the road or some that volume on the road, because like that's what the Euros did. And I was doing the Madison a lot. So I got to go over to Europe and race on the road. And I was really good at it because it wasn't like 10,000 feet of climbing in like 80 miles. Like, it was all about positioning. It was all about knowing where to be. It was all about fighting at the right time. And like that just played so well into like how I raced that I had like pulled off some like top 10s. I got some top 20s. And it was like my first time over. And I remember like the first race I did on the national team was this race in Holland. And I remember watching, I didn't even know what was going on, but I remember watching it get like harder and more strung off. And I'm like watching guys like sprint up the side. And I'm like, I ain't catch a train to the front. Like, this doesn't feel right. and I remember like catching like on this, like using this massive effort to catch this ride to the front. And I remember like riding and I'm like just head down all out. I'm like, oh my, like what's happening? And I'm like, man, I wonder if other people are suffering. And I look back and I was like the last dude on the group. I'm like trying to like pull off like, you know how you pull off, you make up some space and you kind of catch your breath for a little. I'm trying to do that. And I'm like the last dude on the group of like 20 people or like 25 people. And then I ended up getting dropped. But like after the race, I remember that one of the national team coaches being like, is this your first race? And I was like, yeah. And he was like,
That's pretty good.
It was like one of those like pretty good. And I was like, hey, all right, sick. And then like later learned that like I had made the first group of this race that wasn't a small race. And even though I got dropped, like having the know-withal to like get there and be there. And that was just for me panicking. that was just like straight panic mode. I was like, oh, this doesn't feel right. And making it that I had like a really fun time over there on the national team while I was there. I didn't get to go back, but that was my fault. And then after that was, I think after that year, I don't know what I did. I think so. The next year was Livestrong, and then I went from my last race on the national team was under 23 Roubaix, which was sick. And then after that, I didn't race from under 23 Roubaix. I didn't do anything big. I did a couple local crits, right? I didn't do any racing until Tour of Qatar on Livestrong the next year.
Oh my gosh.
That was my arc from like being a domestic rider to like the Pro Tour.
Oh my gosh.
So like I was, again, you get into that situation and you're like, what the hell is going on? Like that race is in January, man. Like I had no racing under me. I hadn't raced for like 6 months or something. And I went from like being a like local, I went from being like local races between Roubaix was my last like big under 23 race, right? To like doing a Pro Tour race with like Tom Bonin, Fabian Cancellara. I remember like walking to breakfast and being like whoa, this is crazy, man.
So what caused? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
But like that was a switch. That was the switch in like I had trained hard that off season. It was my first year having a coach. I signed with Jim Lehman. Actually, he was amazing. And that was another thing. I didn't have a coach until I was 21.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was like I was talent, man. I was He's a riding talent, dude. And so then I got a coach. So I trained hard that offseason, but that was like my first structured offseason. My debut race was going to be Tour Qatar.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
So that went great.
After that, you ended up going to, so like it looks like you took a break, at least like according to like your career in between then and then when you came back with the Stellus in 2014.
I went to college, man. Cycling wasn't worked out.
What caused you to make that decision, going from cycling pro tour going to that?
It was just like it was a lot of lessons being learned really harshly and really fast. And like that was like one of those things where like me being a black kid from South Central LA, being in this like super white, super European environment, I just wasn't comfortable. I wasn't comfortable. No one had any understanding. And like, there was no sympathy because like, it was such a drastic change. It was like, either you're going to do it, you can do it, or you can't. And I think that's the European way, right? Like they have such a massive pool of people to choose from because cycling is massive in Europe. Kids start cycling super young and they have like, everyone wants to do it. No one's really introduced to it in America, right? At that age. So like, it's not really a thing. So there's this harsh reality that you have to deal with when you're over there. And it feels like the Euros don't want you over there. Not all, but some. They don't want you there, right? So I had spent time in Europe on a national team. And I had watched like a lot of the people that I like really like admired be miserable. I had conversations with pro tour guys, which were great conversations, but like it just didn't feel like at the top level what I felt like they should be experiencing. All the pro Conti dudes were dicks. Like, and I was like, and that's half the, like, that's like a quarter to half the peloton. And you're like dealing with these guys that are like trying to make it to the next level. And it's like a dog eat dog world. And I just honestly wasn't mature enough to pick my life up and go live in Europe. And like, that's what you have to do to become a pro tour rider. You got to pick your life up and you got to move to Europe. And when I realized that was the buy-in, I was just like, nah, like it's not for me. Like I hadn't had really good experiences. There was no one there that I was able to relate to or kind of like vent to. I don't vent to my parents, so I just like felt really isolated and alone. And like that was gonna be my life. And I was like, I would rather go do something else. So I got back home. I didn't resign to Live Strong. I didn't get back on the national. I didn't get to go back over on the national team, even though I had like really good results. And that was it. I was like, all right, well, that was fun. I'm gonna go to school. I'm gonna go to college, study graphic design, and then I'm gonna move on with my life. So I spent about a year training when I could, going to college, which was terrible because I went to a junior college and it felt like high school, and I had been out of high school for like 4 years at that point. I was like, hell no, no. I'm thinking college like you see in the movies, man. I'm like, there's gonna be girls everywhere. It's gonna be parties everywhere. I'm gonna go to like football game, like none of that. It was like high school. And I was like, all right, well, this is terrible. And then I had like a part-time job, it was a great job, and the guy that I worked for was amazing, but it was terrible. Like, it's terrible showing up on someone's clock. I remember one time, this is why I quit my part-time job. I worked like a couple of days, like 3 days that week, and they were at very inconvenient times. And I got my paycheck, and it was like $75. And I was like, never again. I was like, hey, bro, I won't work here anymore, man. If you need 2 weeks, here's my 2 weeks. and that was that. So like after having that experience, Corey had just turned pro. I think he had just started like really racing on a high level. And I remember this like yesterday, dude. I put together this old beat up Cannondale Super 6. It had like like a different fork than the frame. And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna put I had some 404 zips that I was like, oh, I'm gonna just throw these on. So I feel fast all the
time. Deep wheels are fast for sure. There's something there, right? Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna throw these on so I feel fast all the time. And I was like, and I'm just gonna be Corey's training partner. Like that was it. I was like making decent money. Like I was making decent enough money, just winning crits. So I was like, I was just gonna do that for a while until I figure this out, because I don't want to go back to school. I don't want to work for anybody. And I'm still pretty okay at cycling. I still had done pretty decently, even for like not having an off season and working and going to school for a year. I still had decent legs. I still had like decent season. So that's what I did. I literally only came back because Corey was in the sport. And I was like, I'm just going to be his training partner. And he trains like a maniac. So I had a good year, man. Like I remember him begging for me to be on So after that, I trained with Corey. I begged to be on Silence. I was on Silence for 2 years. And that was okay. I had the first year I actually had a really good year. It was like the year Daniel Holloway was unstoppable. And I ended up beating him at Tour of America's Dairyland like 2 times, and he was like furious. And I was like,
yeah, Holloway was unstoppable then. It was crazy. Yeah.
And I was like, all right, cool. That was fantastic. So in my head, I'm like, all right, I've proven that I should be leading this team. And I had signed with the Stellas. To basically to lead the team. And I was really young, so it's hard. Like at that point in my career, I kept getting invited. Every time I would talk to a team, it was like, yeah, we want you to come teach all these guys. But I was like 24, 25, right? Like they're like, I want you to come lead this team and teach these guys like I was an old veteran. And I was like, I know I've been around for a while, but it's hard to get someone that's older than you to respect you, right? As the leader of a team, especially in cycling. So I had expected Excelis to be like, yeah, we're gonna put the whole team behind you, like you're the guy. And the next year, dude, they hired Adam Meyerson, and my whole year got ruined because I was constantly at odds with this guy. And I'm like, dude, I don't know if you know who I am.
It's a bold card to play.
I know. I was like, I know you're like a legend of cycling, and I know you get a lot of top 10s, but I win. I remember having this.
Yeah, exactly. Drop it.
I remember because at Dana Point we had a guy in the breakaway, and he was doing really well. He was having a strong year, but he never would win. He would always get 4th or 5th or whatever. He wasn't gonna win. And we're at Dana Point. I was like, dude, I have legs to win. We need to chase his ass down. You know what I mean? Just because he's in a breakaway with Carl Menzies, man. He's gonna beat Carl Menzies. You know what I mean? And I was like, we need to chase. We were in the perfect position because UHC had, I think they had Carl in the breakaway, who's one of their vital lead out guys. So I was like, dude, if we bring them back with 3 to go or something, then Carl's not going to be effective and I can get around them. Right. Mm-hmm. And we had the guys that could chase the breakaway down, and Adam kept screaming at guys that I would send to the front to chase. And after the race, I was like, dude, I'm done with you. I'm done with you forever. I was like, you and your 3rd place getting teammate can go somewhere. And that was it for me, man. I felt like I had proved, I had given my loyalty, and I had given my soul to this team. And in return, they had hired someone that was going to that came in and was super divisive and kind of ruin that year for me. And I was like, dude, again, just so over it. And I was like, I'm done. 2 years, I tried. Corey, I'm done. And Corey had signed pro for Silence the first year. It was Incycle Cannondale the first year before it turned into Silence. So the next year was Silence, and I was like, dude, I don't want to race anymore. This is lame. And he was like, dude, let's see if we could be on the same team. And I was like, man, you keep roping me in. I was like, let's see if we can ride on the same team. Mind you, I still won 10 races that year. Right. And it was always very interesting to me. And I don't know if this is a race thing or whatever, but it was always interesting to me. I've won at least 10 races for a year for most of my career. This year I had won 12 races or something, and that wasn't anything special. for me, but I was just like, I've won races. I know that people know that I'm a proven winner.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like struggling to find teams. I think that year I sent out, Corey was like, come ride with Silence. So I was like, all right, cool. If I'm going to do it, like, let me see what options that I have. I sent out 150 resumes that year.
Jeez.
150.
What?
Every teams in Slovakia, teams in Russia. I just wanted to see if, like, I just shotgun effect. I just wanted to see how many offers I could get. I got like no offers, man. I was like, what? I was like, there's guys that I know are like literally there because their friend races for the team. And I was like, here I am, someone that should be marketable. I've had great interviews. Like, I'm not only good in races, I'm not only good as a teammate, but like I have personality off the bike and I can do interviews and be great for sponsors, right? And I can't get a job. I was like, nah, this sport is like corrupt, man. I was like, this is like ridiculous. I don't want to do this anymore. So then Corey like was like, no, come race for us. It's fine. It's gonna be fine. So then I go race for Silence, and this dude has to like beg for me to be on the Silence team. And I'm like, I have better results than most of the people on this team, and like I'm begging to be on this team, right? So like, all right, it happens. I'm on the team, right? Last person to sign to the team. I think I won like 16 or 18 races that year. You know what I mean? Wow. It was like me and Corey. Yeah, it's like me and Corey. I was gonna win. What happened at Nationals that year? Oh no, it was pro that year. I got spanked that year. I got spanked. I think that was the year that Brad Huff won. And it was like amazing to watch because like there's like 5 laps to go, and I'm watching Brad, and like Holloway was like literally Holloway destroyed the UAC team on his own. And the only reason he probably didn't win that race is because UAC had like maybe 12 people, right? And Holloway destroyed all of them, and that in turn set Brad Huff up to win the race because their lead out train was pathetic after Holloway like ripped their legs off, man. So me and Corey had this like carry the team. Like obviously he's my little brother. He knows me better than anybody. I was setting him up to win like local stuff, and he always tells me like he always tells me he wants to ride for me in the bigger stuff because I'm just like willing to do stuff that he's not.
That's right.
So I had won like 16. I think it was like 16 or 18 races that year, and it was like me and Corey. I like carried the team. That was the year that I won the sprint jersey at North Star. It was just like a super good year. The next year, they freaking didn't re-sign Corey. And it was like annoying because I was like, they sent me a contract in like October or something. And I was like, all right, great, cool. Like I have a contract. Like I'll sign it when Corey gets his contract. And they told me like, oh, we're working on his contract. We're going to send him his contract. We just want to get the bigger guys done first. And they never send him a contract. And I had to ride for that goddamn team, even though they like basically screwed us over when we carried the team for the year before. There is like that kind of stuff in cycling is like ridiculous to me. There is no ethics to like understanding that when someone is not only riding for basically free and like giving you their heart and soul, you turn around and screw them over. Like it's crazy. It's crazy.
Soul
like
killing.
they didn't think that would have a mental effect on me. Like my brother's supposed to just go, and when he like begged me to be on your freaking team, right? Like he's the reason that I'm here. And like that's not business. That's super personal. And like I hate that. I hate when people try to, oh, it's business. No, if it's business, if that's how you think, then I'm not supposed to be on your team because we don't have the same morals, right? So like it's just like stuff like that has like it's like plagued like our career, right? And then after that year, the team was going away because they were like, the everybody's worried about their bottom line, so they could survive for one more year if they only had a women's team because they were going to market it as that, right? We have a women's team, that's why you should give us money, or that's why you should give me money because they're paying the women like shit also, right? And paying themselves. So they had a women's team for another year, and I was like over it, man. I was like, it's just like it's so crushing. It's like year after year after year. Doesn't matter how successful you are, like if someone doesn't like you because there is no structure, because there is no oversight, like they could just flick you whenever they want. And I was like, man, I had gotten a couple offers, but they were like $1,000 a month. I made $1,000 a month when I was like 17.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm grown, man. Like, I'm not doing this shit anymore. It's like, I'm not doing this shit anymore, man. Like, I'm done. So after that, I was like talking to Corey, and I was like, dude, I think I'm gonna do a retirement year. I'm just gonna do all the races that I've wanted to do that I couldn't do because teams have these stupid, like, they don't give you a schedule, but they expect you to be ready for like every race, whatever they like, oh, you're going here. And I was like, I don't want to deal with that. I want to like map out my whole year. I was like, I'm just going to go have fun. I'm going to travel. I'm going to hang out with my friends. I'm going to actually enjoy the cities that I go to, because when you're riding on a professional team, a lot of the time it's so stale and it's so boring. And so it's only about cycling. It's only about the bike. You don't get to go out and actually enjoy the places you go to. I understand a little bit that there's a budget. But you know, if they want it to be in controlled environment, I really believe that teams should create stuff for their teams to do, right? Like dinners and like, oh, here's this really nice restaurant in New York that we heard about. We're gonna take you guys there because we don't want you guys doing craziness on your own. There's none of that. There's no structure. So I was like, I'm just gonna do my own thing. And like I had the best year I've ever had on a bike on my own. I signed with Rocket Expresso, but that was only for fixed gear racing. And I have been going to like Barcelona, Red Hook for vacation, right? Because that environment was like more people that I like went to school with and grew up around. And that was what was so amazing about the fixed gear racing is that it was such a crazy diverse culture, and it was like inviting and loving, and everybody understood that the bike was their common ground and nothing else mattered, right? Nothing else mattered. We love this. There's people that go to Red Hook that knew they weren't going to qualify, but would spend like their yearly savings, right? They would save up for the whole year to go do one Red Hook, not qualify, watch the race, and then go party with their heroes after, and then go ride with their heroes the next day. And like, that's something that cycling does not have. And it's what made that so special. So I would go to Barcelona every year, and I was like, I saw the Rocket Expresso team the last year that I went before I was on the team, and they had like a stage, they had like a mechanic, they had like a coffee machine. I said, I'm bougie. I gotta get on this team. I need to be a part of this. So I was like, Iman Lucas was on the team, who I'm a pretty good friend of. Colin Strickland is also a good friend of, and Alec Briggs, who's like one of my best friends now. I love that dude. I was like just chatting him up. I was like, dude, I want to be on team. Like, what? Like, how does it work? And he's like, we'll let you know, right? So that all season, I like got on the team. I was like, I'm not gonna race for a team. I'm gonna do my own thing. So they gave me like a I think they gave me like 15K. They're like, here's 15K. We'll give you this up front. You have to pay for your flights. You have to pay for your like everything to get to the races. So there was supposed to be 4 races, and lucky me, there was only 2. So I had 15K. That was my budget for the whole year. And this is before I got any sponsorship, or I started looking at like working out sponsorship. I'm like kind of like weird. So I was like already looking up like pitch decks and resumes and all this other stuff because I was just interested in it. Like I built out a whole pitch deck for the London Olympic Games, I think. Like I built out a whole pitch deck to like pitch to like Felt and to pitch to like Shimano. And I was like, I built out like this whole like to pitch to like Red Bull. I remember I had a Red Bull version. I had a GoPro version, all these like crazy like jersey layups. I had like a Rockstar version, like full on, like created this full pitch deck. So I had already knew how to do at least the basics of that. And I started the season and I just did every race that I wanted. I started racing locally, and I was just like, Corey, I'm just going to destroy the field and then lead you out. Like, that's going to be my job. And like, I did that for like 4 months, and I got so strong, dude. I got so strong. So then the season started, and I was like, okay, like I'm actually riding good. And I was going to the races that I wanted to do. And I was like, oh man, like I'm actually riding good. Like we'll see like when the big races come around, how it goes. And then I had some commitments. So like I didn't get to do Tulsa that year because I had to go do a race nocturne in London, which was sick. But I would have like destroyed Tulsa that year. That would have been a freaking good year. So I'm showing up to all these races and I'm like having dinner with old friends. I'm like hanging out with like people that like I haven't seen in forever, like family in different parts. I'm like flying in early because like I can, and I'm a one-man show, so I can like stay with friends. And most of the time I would get hotels. But like if I flew in early and I was gonna hang out with like a family member, I would like to stay with them for a couple of days before I checked into my hotel. And then started to turn on for the race. And I had the best year I ever had on the bike. I like was showing up to everything and just being like so content with just being there and giving my best. Right. And I was like, man, this is like what this is supposed to be, man. This is like what I dreamed of it being. So then I started like putting stuff together. I was like, I'm gonna start building my own like thing. So I started connecting partners with what I was doing, and I'm going like, hey man, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. I had like my following had been like gone up a little bit. So I had like some kind of clout, right? Like there's some kind of like understanding that Instagram, social media engagement meant something and people could use it. So I started like cultivating like partnerships and like figuring out what I wanted to do. And like halfway through the year, I was like, Corey was having a miserable ass time on KHS Elevate, right? He was like not getting raced because they were afraid that if we showed up together, in races that we would work together, even though like we weren't on the same team, right? So after Red Hook New York, I like did Red Hook New York, but went to the after party because you have to.
Sure, yeah, it's mandatory. Yep.
Had a flight out to California from New York at 6 a.m. in the morning. Flew from New York to LA, got picked up. Me and Dante drove to Dana Point. I slept in the grass for like an hour. And then I did Dana Point, and I ended up, and I was like, oh man, how epic would it be if I got first and if I won Red Hook and then I won Dana Point? Like, that would be amazing. And I got second in Red Hook and I got second in Dana Point.
It's still
which is still amazing,
yeah,
right? Which is still
impressive.
Which is still like this really fantastic story. I won't tell my kids about it because if you're not first, you're last. But
sure.
But after that race, Corey got in trouble because like they were like leaving gaps. Like I said, like it's impossible to make up a certain amount of space out of the Dana Point corner. It's like 5% downhill into like a 50 meter like kicker, and like that's the finish at Dana Point. And we came through the second to last corner, and I had three guys in front of me, so I got to make up 3 bike lanes, right? I got to make up 3 or 4 bike lanes, and like there's spaces between them, so now it's more space. So I dive in under Corey, and I'm about to dive under Scott Law, but I run out of time, and I'm like, all of us are gonna crash. I'm about to crash, like me, Scott, Corey, everyone's going down if I like shoot this corner, and that was the winning move. But I just wasn't willing to like figure out. I wasn't willing to take the chance on if we were gonna crash or not. So I back out into the corner, which in turn screws me and screws Corey out of the sprint. So he doesn't let me live that down. He's like, dude, you either go early or you go or you wait behind me, you idiot. You like, it's like I would have won that race. So he gets second, and then after that race, he like his director talks to him, and he gets in trouble for not like closing the door on me. And he's like, what do you want me to do? Like, he's coming under me. He's like twice my size. and he's my brother. Like, what do you want me to do? You want me to crash him? You know what I mean?
Right.
So after that race, there was like this massive conflict of us being at the same races. And he didn't get to go do Tulsa because his manager thought that I was going to be at Tulsa because I was supposed to be. And I ended up going to London. So he ended up going to Armed Forces DC with like 3 of the climbers, because I think that there's a paywall, like you get paid to go do that race. So he had to go do DC with the climbers. Mind you, he's not making any money. All of the money is at Tulsa, and he's not making any money. He's getting disqualified from going to do those races because they think that I'm going to be there. And I was just like, it's the same stuff all the time. Like, these are the problems within the sport that no one addresses or no one really knows about, right? So like now he doesn't get to race all year because to be at a race. So then after that, I was like, all right, well, this is lame, man. Like, he didn't even go to Boise Twilight that year. And at Boise Twilight, they had like 4 guys. They didn't even have a full full team. So I was like, all right, this is lame. I was like, you should just quit. I was like, you should just quit and come ride with me. Like, let's just start traveling with me and doing what I'm doing. Like what's the, like, that title pro doesn't mean anything. I was like, you have a pro license and I make like way more money than you. And at this point I had generated a bunch of personal sponsors and I was like, yeah, dude, like he has the same following as me. Right. So I was like, you have the same followers as me. I could just, when I shoot these deals over, I just shoot them over for both of us. And he was like, nah, dude, I don't know. Like, it was so important for him to be pro, to have that pro, like that badge. And it doesn't mean anything in America. Our team is an amateur elite team. And like, we'll race any pro team right now. Like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? We beat every pro team. KHS showed up to the first race of our season with their whole team. It was 12 of them. And we beat them. We beat them with a team of like, we didn't even have our full squad. We didn't even have our A squad, and we beat them. So it's like, I was telling him this before all of that happened, and I was like, dude, you gotta come over. Like, just do what I'm doing. He just like, it took me like 3 months to convince him to like, not that big pro doesn't mean anything. I was like, dude, I'll pay you more money than you're making. I'll get us more money. And then finally I was like, look, I'm starting a team. I was like, I'm doing it by ourselves is great, but like, if we can open up opportunities to like a lot of our friends, like Corey and I both have had friends, like that kid Alex Garcia quit racing because after juniors he didn't have anywhere to go and he had to help his mom pay the bills. So like, this one of the most talented kids that I've ever raced with quit cycling because he didn't have a home or there wasn't funding to like help him, you know, continue to do what he was doing. He's a Mexican American kid, right? Like, diversity in cycling that we always talk about. But at the end of the day, if companies are putting profits over everything, that we're never going to get where we're trying to go, right? Everyone's always talking to me about what we need to do to bring more people of color into the sport and to elevate diversity. And it's like, the first step is to keep the people that are already doing it in the sport. And like, not expecting to keep them in the sport because they love it so much. It's to like share the wealth. And I feel like our country has a problem with sharing wealth. And because of that, like, you can't, if someone is grown, if there's a grown man, anyone like over 18, over 20, if you're out of college or whatever, you can't expect that person to sacrifice their well-being in their lives and the people in their lives to chase, you know, something that isn't there really, right? So I was like, I'm gonna start a team. So I went on this tour of asking all of my personal sponsors for like a crazy amount of money and 10 bikes for this team that they like, no one knew what I was talking about. They didn't know. It was total left field. Like, I remember showing up to the Specialized Retailer event out of nowhere. I was just like, I need to get in front of these people. I gotta talk to them. I'm pretty relentless when I set my mind to something. And I was like, I'm gonna just drive up to Northern California and crash their retailer event. And it was a super success. Like, I basically just like, I got to show off how good I was with people and like talking to all the retailers. And like, that was a hit. And then I got to like sit down with like the guy that was negotiating my contract for next year. And I was like, this is what I want. I was like, I need $100,000. And he was like, what? He was like, where'd you even pick that number from, man? He's like, there's no proof of concept, bro. I can't get you trying to get me fired. I can't give you $100,000. So we settled on a number that was significantly smaller, but but he got me the bikes. He got me the 10 bikes that I asked for. And so after convincing that, I was like, okay, what does a professional team look like? So that I did all this homework on like, obviously like having a logo and like the problem we face in the sport of like always having people go, oh yeah, like this team is like Quick Step, and then it's like Mappe, and then it's like this, and then it's like this, and it changes all the time. So we settled on a name, and I was like, oh, Legion. Like I thought of names for like 2 months and couldn't come up with anything. And I was reading these names off to Corey, and Corey is so harsh, man. He's like, nope, that's stupid. Nope, I don't like it. Nope, that sounds dumb. And then like he was playing this video game, and like I guess in the video game, like the bad guys in the video game, or like the cult in the video game was called the Legion. And he was like, "Oh, what do you think about Legion?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, that sounds dope. Let me play with it." So I went to my computer and I started like playing with the typography because that's what I love. I love design, so I was spending like hours trying to think of this typography. And then I was like, "Oh, you know, it would be sick if we own team." And we grew up on 39th Street, and then so I was writing it out, and I was like, "Wait, the 3 can be an E, and the 9 can be the G." And I was like, "Oh, I got it!" And that was it. So we put the location on it, and you know, we we're proud of where we're from. So we put the location on, and it became the Legion of Los Angeles. It makes sense. It sounds official. And now we're making it official.
With all the stuff that you've done, Justin, you've mentioned a handful of times, like, you know, the systemic racism and even like the implied bias that people probably don't even recognize at first that they have in place. Some people actively, some people inactively. But I guess like thinking like proactively, what can we do as cyclists to make cycling more inclusive? Like what you were talking about, that environment that you loved at Red Hook. What can we do as cyclists to change that?
Yeah, funny enough, that environment, like you can get a fixie for like somebody will give you a fixie, right? You can get a fixie for a couple $100. So like I know like with Specialized, we're working on. We give away a Sprint LA for like every USA Crit Series race we win to like a junior that's in the area. Or that a standout junior, wherever. It doesn't have to be only from the area, but I have told them, I was like, we're gonna populate the whole, like developing culture because we're gonna win a lot of races. But I think with that Sprint LA bikes like that, right, that lowers that paywall, and I think that's important. And it's also like there's a lot of bikes being recycled now because people are moving from rim to disc brake. Like people that can afford bikes tend to buy like a lot of them, right? They want the latest and greatest, and like the turnover in the sport for that kind of stuff is pretty fast. So I think just like making old stuff available to people is like one thing. If there's the perfect case scenario would be there would be a foundation that's set up to donate bikes and parts and stuff to underserved communities and people that need them. But the simplest thing that we can do is like continue to hold companies accountable. If they say they're going to do something, we need to make sure that they do it. Like people need to be looking at the greed within companies and within our nation, because that's like really our biggest problem. Racism is a tool that's used to serve greedy people that want to keep everybody occupied while they continue to steal all the money, right? All of the profits. Like what I think it's, 10%. I think it's like something like 10% of the country owns 40% of the wealth, or it might be 1% of the country. Mm-hmm. It might be 1% of the country owns 40% of the country's wealth. And that's like, that's everyone doesn't want to be rich. It's not everyone's goal to be wealthy, right? People just want to be able to take care. Most people just want to be able to take care of their family. They want to be able to hang out with their friends on the weekends. That's like the goal of most people. But we've allowed this capitalistic kind of idea that's being skewed at this point to overturn or to make that, to criminalize, not criminalize, but to like to make it feel like it's wrong to just want to get by, right? So like people are like, they don't have healthcare, they can't get full-time jobs, you got to work part-time, all of that stuff. People need to pay attention to what companies are doing within the brand and how they're actually giving back. There's a really big problem that we have, that companies aren't giving enough back to the sport, and then wondering why people are quitting or when that older white male demographic kind of like wants to go do something else with their money, then there's like left scattering to go like, oh, we didn't invest anything into like development or diversity, and now there's less cyclists, right? Like USA Cycling is having that problem where like they're not getting the same number of people buying licenses as they did 10 years ago. And they're like, oh, why is this happening? But it's like, what programs do USA Cycling have as far as like bringing more people into the sport or continuing to develop riders? There are none, right? So those two things. And then the last thing would be just to like go out of you. We have to change the culture within cycling. That angry, entitled, asshole, I'm better than you attitude that people like to like carry around, like it's disgusting. And like if we continue, if we allow, if like we as good people don't shame those people and go and like make sure those people feel like they are isolated and they aren't the norm and like nobody wants that. Dude, all I want to do is like pull up to a coffee shop and have these conversations with like amazing people. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, or orange, right? The bike is our common ground. The bike is what takes us, you know, what brings us together. And like, that's the most amazing part about cycling. That's the most amazing part about the bike. Like I grew up in South Central LA. Like my whole perspective was changed on who I am or who I could be because of a bike. And like trying to give that perspective to more people like me, it's like that's the main goal of what Legion is, right? And the only way we felt like we can do that in a relatable way, because we're tired of like it's hard doing the same old outdated content that only resonates with one type of person. That gets old. That's not going to bring anyone like me into the sport, right? So like we just need a little bit of trust to make sure that we can continue to authentically promote ourselves in a way that hasn't been done before, right? Because there's never been like that. There's never been that need.
Yeah. Justin, this is incredible. I don't know if you can't hear us with your headphones right there. You just pulled them off and checked them out. But you like all the user questions that have been coming in, you've basically knocked them all off. And I know that you're not looking at our doc, so I don't know how you did it. But it's pretty impressive. And I think he probably can't hear us right now. He's working on
I have another
headphones.
question on him for him too before. Are you going to end it now?
No. We have two other questions that I wanted to get to, but Nate, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll wait till I can hear us.
Sorry, I'm back. Yeah.
So Justin,
cool.
I was just saying that I don't know what's going on because I know that you're not in our doc right now, but you've basically hit every single question that a person submitted to us. Like you ran through all of it. So
stop turning on Bluetooth, man.
Corey's stealing his headphones with Bluetooth, I think. There we go. Are we back? Are we back? We're good?
Not quite yet.
Hold on.
Almost there.
Stand by.
Dude, that happens all the time. Like every time I'm doing the meeting, I don't know what he connects, but like he always connects something and it takes my headphones out. You know, go, oh, it did it again. I don't know.
Bluetooth wars.
Yeah, man. If you need to too, you
Bluetooth
can just
is not very good.
There we go. It's working good right now. We actually just have a couple more questions. He's gonna go solve them. Nate, one of the things that I wanted to talk about with this too is to go into like we definitely want to end on how to beat Legion for sure.
Yeah.
But then I also wanted to look into like the recruiting aspect of it too. Like what do they look for in a rider?
Yeah.
Did you have some?
Go ahead. I wanted to talk about. Justin, can you hear me? Not yet.
We're
talk about the goal. Okay.
There he is.
We're good? No worries.
Oh
Justin,
my God, what is happening? It keeps turning off. Hold on.
John, so I want to talk about the
Let's
GoFundMe.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
then I know he already looked at it. I don't know if you want to wait, but the critiquing of the video, if we have time. I know it's not going to be live with the one, just talk about it. We can always cut it up later.
For sure.
With visuals.
Okay,
Justin.
That works perfect.
We probably have a lot of people listening to this that want to do something like right now. And I know Legion, your goal, like part of it is to increase diversity in cycling. And I think you have a GoFundMe. So do you want to plug that so people can actively donate if they feel passionate about this?
Hold on.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know why it keeps going out. Is it a Zoom thing now?
Hopefully not. It's clear on our end.
Yeah, we can hear you crystal clear.
Yeah, you can hear me, but you cutting out. Oh, so you're saying we have people want to do stuff right now?
Correct.
Yeah, we have a GoFundMe. It's Pride of the People, Legion of Los Angeles. Yeah, we just put it together. Like it costs a lot to run a team, and we even like before anything was, even before we had the funding to actually do it, we were just like, like something that's really important to us is community outreach and like getting people together, because we feel like a lot of times for us, like cyclists are only getting together when it's like time to ride, right? Like, oh, we're going for a ride. So we put together these like initiatives where when we go to like Tulsa, when we go to like Washington, D.C., when we go to New York, any place that has a Rafa store in it, we'll do like a Q&A or like a meet the team or like whatever. And we'll just come in and we'll basically do a live podcast, right? And just kind of tell our story, talk about like, what the plan is in the race, talk about like how, like all of the questions that people want to know, like how we're training at the moment, like, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, if you guys want to help now, like those are some of the things that we're doing with that money. It's going to allow us like flying a little bit earlier, spend some time with some junior programs, continue to do those community outreach events. We're going to do like when I was younger, we used to do these day camps where kids would come train with like, we get invited out as like the pro riders. And we do like day camp and just ride with juniors. So we're going to bring that back. Just set it up where like we can have parents come out and barbecue. We'll provide the meat. We'll provide the drinks. We'll provide the food. We'll just have like some really cool guests come out and ride with these pros. Like, and that's on the spectrum. That's like if Taylor Finney's in town, like I'm sure Taylor will pull up. If like Christopher Blevins is in town, I'm sure he'll pull up. So just like really creating this bridge for kids to understand that like you can go out and train. And that's fine. That's really fine. But you can't forget to enjoy the people that are living the same experiences that you are. So there's a bunch of things. I'm starting my old junior team. The junior team that I grew up on, Corinne Rivera, Kendall Ryan, Alexis Ryan, their Tipco, Shram, and Corinne writes for Sunweb. Mm-hmm. They all grew up on this junior team. We all rode for this Major Motion junior team. And that team, Corey, Rasan, and that team went away because it didn't have any funding, right? It goes back to like, so you want to help support the people that are already doing really amazing things. That team went away. So I talked to the guy that ran it, and he is okay with like coming back after investing all of his life savings into like this junior team. He wants to come back, but if he comes back, I want him to be able to like, he doesn't have to, he's not asking to make a living, but he needs to get something, right? Mm-hmm. Like he spent, for like Rasan's like 6 or 7 years older than me, like from Rasan to Corey, Rasan's probably 10 years older than Corey. Like Rasan to Corey, this guy has been putting in work and trying to increase that diversity and develop talent. And he's developed some of the best riders in the world at one time or another. Corinne was like leading the UCI pro rankings, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We used to go to Corinne's house every Saturday and do like 70-mile rides, and just like she used to drop like half the team on the climb, and then we used to all do Karen sprints off her dad's scooter in the last like 10 miles. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of environment that he helped cultivate. And went away. It broke my heart. So like now that we're getting into a position where we can help bring that back, and we could maybe change the lives of like a couple of juniors, right? That's what we're going to do. So we're bringing that team back, and some of the funding that is going to be, that's coming through on the GoFundMe is also going to go toward that program, right? Mm-hmm. So we're just trying to do the best job we can with what we have in helping everyone around us grow. And again, putting, we're trying to be the inspiration, right? But there's other things that we want to do to engage people to feel like they belong.
Yeah. So I've put the link to the GoFundMe in our live chat right now, and I already see people say money incoming, so people are already donating, which is awesome. That's amazing. We'll throw it in the description for this YouTube video, and we'll throw it in the description for the podcast episode. And if you go to the TrainerRoad forum and you search for this episode, just search for Justin Williams, you'll be able to find it that way really easily. Then you'll also see another link for it. So it's something that I think that it's a really productive place and a direct place to put funding within, because all of us want to change the world and we want to make the world better. But I think, at least my personal perspective, is it's always best to instead of being panicked by all the things that you can't do, just do what you can. And all of us are within cycling, and this is a great opportunity to do it.
I was thinking about that the other day. being a good person, right? Like being a good person is just like positively impacting the people that come into your life, right? That's what it is to me. That's a part of it. And I was thinking about that today. Like the only way I know how to change kind of everything that's happening in our culture is to like continue to do what I've already been doing. And like I've already, I've jumped in so deep and so hard on like I'm gonna change cycling, which is like this massive like objective and dream. So like when all of this happened, I was like, oh man, am I doing enough? Where I've been running at like 150% capacity for the last year, right? I don't have time for anything. And I'm still asking myself, like, am I doing enough? So like what you said is like really profound, like, helping where you can and how and how where to. It's like that's extremely important. Like you should feel good about that, right?
Yeah, you should, Justin. You should feel great about it.
You
like,
should feel, yeah.
Like you've done so much, and thank you for doing it. Yeah. Sorry, Nate. Go ahead.
For those listening on the podcast, if you Google Justin Williams Legion GoFundMe, it comes up. That's a nice, easy way to get to it too. If you do just Justin Williams GoFundMe, like someone else comes up. So you gotta make sure you put Legion in it.
Yeah.
Don't give it the wrong one.
Good
Somebody
point.
got on. They're like, ooh.
Yeah, we got somebody sniping you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of questions just to end off, because Justin, thanks for dedicating all this time to us on this. And
thank
by
you.
the way, people are already like clamoring to have you on again. So a couple questions. Number one, in fact, this is super interesting to me. You mentioned how you're helping out juniors and how you like this kind of gets into growing the team with Legion. Ethan Villaneda, one of the athletes that you guys hired, I remember watching that kid at SoCal Pro XCTs, and I was down at the mountain bike races, and I was like, that kid's got something special, and he's super kind. Because there's the NICA world where with like high school mountain biking, and it's like, imagine like the stereotypical high school environment that's super toxic, but then just throw in like expensive carbon fiber bicycles and like even worse egos.
I never thought of that.
It can be pretty bad. And Ethan stood out as like a totally unique kid to me when I saw it from afar. I don't know Ethan, but just looking from afar, I was like, wow, what a great kid.
We saw the same thing, man. Like you started riding the road, and I was like, whoa, this kid's awesome.
What do you look for in an athlete that joins Legion? Like whether it's a junior or not, like it's like if you guys were playing this game where you're like collecting like playing cards or something, like you guys are pulling some serious aces. You have like Corey Lockwood with that huge power. So what do you look for in these athletes?
Jonathan. Lots of watts.
So I'll start with Ethan. Ethan was like a unique case. We met Ethan through Almanesque, who was his coach. And he was coming from Nike. He was coming on the ride. And he showed up and he was like trying to outride Corey. And I was just like, bro, you parking up the wrong tree. So like after Corey like annihilated him and he like blew up, he like rode home with us. And I was just like kind of like asking him questions, and he seemed so interesting in learning, right? He just wanted to learn. He's just like, cycling is really weird. Like Ethan trains like probably the fourth most on our team, right? And it's hard to get someone that young. It's hard to get anyone to dedicate that kind of time willingly to the training. So there's a couple things that he did that made him unique and stand out. But the most important thing was like he was humble, he was coachable and teachable. He was willing to learn. He bought into like what the team was. You know what I mean? And we don't have any junior. He's our only junior, but like he was trying to get on another team and he didn't really want to do that. And we're like, look, man, like you don't have to rush into a decision. We'll help you. And we'll give you everything that we can. You can ride under basically me, Corey, Tyler, all these other guys. Corey Lockwood. He loves Corey Lockwood because Corey Lockwood trains like a maniac. And you can come to the team and like we'll try to take care of you as best as we can. And he actually got one of the bikes that we won from the USA Crit Series deal that we have with Specialized. One of the bikes that we gave was him. He was riding like one of his teacher's bikes or something. And it was like a size too big with like 9,800 on it or something. So like he brought it over and we're like, oh man, we can't give you that. So my middle brother had a SRAM red group that he wasn't using. It was rim brake, so we ended up putting him on that. So Ethan came to the team just because of his investment in, like, he would show up every Saturday after that to like learn more. You know what I mean? His buy-in was there. He was committed. Like, people like say they want something most of the time, and then they aren't willing to like put in the effort that you need to put in to actually get that thing. And he did from the jump. And that goes into like what we're looking for riders on the team, right? Like, the first thing we're looking for is buy-in. Like, you got to understand that what we're building now is bigger than like me or Corey or any one individual. And if you don't understand that, then this is not the place for you. We're building something that's trying to reshape what cycling looks like and feels like. And we have goals, and you have to be able to say, okay, like, I'm going to come to this team. I'm going to give my all for the team. There are going to be opportunities for me to win. And when I do, those will be great. But the long-term goal of this is like those social engagements. That's what's important. Everything that we have are because of criteriums and social media and just being accessible, right? If those aren't your core, if those core things that we are about don't resonate with you, and if you don't want to show up to the engagement because you're tired or you're going to be tired for the race, like, the racing doesn't matter if we're not giving back to the people, if we're not allowing people to like take what we do and be inspired with their every day by showing up, right? And letting them know that we're the same way you're here for us, we're there for you. So that's really the criteria of what we look for in people. And we just gotten lucky. I think if you do anything with passion and love and for the right reasons, you're going to attract the right people, right? Those are the people that are going to be wanting to do the same thing. And like, our situation is not perfect. We're not $1 million team. I don't have enough money to pay my guys what they deserve, but they understand from the beginning that like, we'll get there. And like, those are the goals. Like, we're going to get there where like everyone on this team makes enough money to be satisfied with their life. Right. And everything else becomes easy after that. Right. It becomes easy to like buy into it. It becomes easy to like show up to like that Q&A, even if you get smashed in the race. Like, it becomes easy when you're being fed and you're able to feed your family, and we have a mission, and we're making impact beyond crossing the line first. Like, people, my whole career, people have broken this up into parts, right? Like, either you're a winner or you're a people's person or you're this or you're that. And at the end of the day, the greatest athletes, just athletes, usually have a bit of everything, and they understand that everything matters. And we have to get our sport to the point where people understand that, like, the same way you should be winning races or you should be competitive is the same way you should be willing to show up and shake hands and kiss babies. And it's the same way you should be willing to like spend that extra time or hire someone to spend that time in developing your social media and creating a message and getting behind something that actually matters. Because at the end of the day, being an athlete and having this platform just puts you in the position to uplift something else, right? And to put a light on something else. And that's the power that comes with being someone of influence. And if you're not using that influence to like make someone else's life better, then like, what is the point of you having that power per se?
I think Chris Blevins said it really well when he said on your recent podcast with Payson, he said, be Kobe on the bike so I can be Kobe off the track, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, work hard so then you can achieve a greater good. Like, there's something else to it. It's not just, just about that. That's awesome. It's like, and it's pretty cool. I'm watching the fundraiser right now, and it's just ticking up, and people are donating, which is really cool. Because this is the thing that you're supporting. If you're listening to this is like what you're supporting, and that feels really cool. Because for the chances are, most of us like cycling, right? So we understand that, and we understand where the impact would go. So thanks for doing it, Justin. Nate, do we want to ask anything before we get into the last question of how
to beat Legion?
Yeah.
Let's just do that.
Let's just go into it. All right, Justin. Yeah, Nate, go ahead.
Nate,
I have a theory.
You had a theory.
I do have a theory. Okay, so it's going to take two teams working together. Okay, and
we need two teams.
This is two teams, and this is when you guys come into the before the final corner, and this is with when you hug the corner, and then you come out to get the best line. I think what you need is another train that comes up next to you guys and challenges you for that corner.
This is on the last lap.
Yeah. Okay. So that you have to swing wide sooner than you normally would. right?
Okay.
Thus, because if they get in front of you, you guys aren't going to be able to carry momentum through the last corner.
Through the quarter, right?
And then you need another team behind Legion directly that then, or at least one or two people that then shoots the inside of that corner early as soon as they can. Once you guys swing wide, and I know I've seen you and Corey too. When it's kind of a messy sprint, you guys still win. But at least maybe they can get into that final corner as you guys swing wide with a good line because you're trying to block the other team. That's my theory. What do you think about that theory?
Okay, so the first thing would be on the last lap, like you're saying, like going into turn 3, Tyler's doing, or it would be maybe Diego, but like let's use Boise for example, because that's online. You guys can go watch Boise. You can go watch that. Kind of happens. You can go watch Boise on YouTube. Tyler's going 40 miles an hour. So like bring a team, not only would you don't have enough time, like the time that it takes to ride that section is probably like, I think it was like maybe 15 seconds, maybe like 12 seconds. You wouldn't have enough time to get a team by. You would maybe be able to get 2 guys by. The next thing is they're probably fighting. To have a team lined up behind us is pretty impossible. Like no one's letting, like there's other sprinters, like there's Ty Magner, there's a bunch of other sprinters that are wanting to ride behind us in that bubble. So to have multiple guys back there would be almost impossible. Like to have the guys that could fight to stay there, and then after fighting to stay there, having to accelerate passes while Tyler is doing 40, impossible. we couldn't, even if we were racing ourselves, we couldn't do that. And then on the like kind of that chaotic like last corner a scenario, like that's where I would just ride through you. Like there's like a point where it is a sprint, and there's a point where like if I deem it dangerous that you're riding on the inside of me while other people are riding on the outside of me, and I like calculate that before you can get through the corner, like I'm gonna ride through you. and then it's a situation where we're really good at that. Like me and Corey are extremely good at like finding those holes and keeping momentum while riding through them. So then like it puts you in a situation where like, yeah, we're not just getting it. The best case scenario to your theory would be we don't have a lead out and we're just fighting to sprint you guys one-on-one, but you still have to beat me and Corey in like basically a match sprint, which is like I was national champion in the match sprint. So.
Okay, I have another idea. Okay, class 3 e-bikes. If we're all on those.
No, they're limited to 20 miles an hour, Nate.
Not class 3.
28.
That's
those
28
miles an hour. You couldn't go,
okay, so from the get-go, 28, we'll try to, that might not even work actually too.
Yeah, 28 slower than your average.
Tulsa averaged 31 miles an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
E-bikes don't work too. So Justin, how would you beat Legion?
You could do it a few ways. You would need either two.
This may or may not be true, by the way. He may be throwing y'all off the side.
I know, right?
Yeah. He's like, go as hard as you can from the gun. It'll work, I promise.
Yeah, no, that's not how to do it, because the block will just chase you down.
It's true.
There's 2 ways to do it. The first way to do it would be you need two sprinters. You would need 2 pretty fast guys. The problem with it is like finding guys that are going to be faster than us and fresher than us. In a faster race, it's hard to do. But you would need 2 sprinters, and then maybe like a in-betweener, like a all-arounder. And the all-arounder's job is basically just to keep you out of trouble, right? Like when people start fighting, you need someone that's just going to step into the wind and like just ride you next to like our lead-out train. Like he would just have to ride you next to our lead-out train, and then when people stop fighting, then he would just slide back in, try to get a little bit of a break, and then he's basically protecting the second 2 guys so that they're not doing any effort, right? They're letting all the other sprinters fight. And then with like when Corey Lockwood is about, you have to know when Corey Lockwood is going to go, or you have to try to estimate when Lockwood is going to take his 2-lap pull, because once he starts his final pull, no one's going to fight you anymore, right? So like now you've been saving energy. Because you had that guy that was sitting on the outside and keeping you out of trouble, or you could try to do it where you come from the back. But I think the safest way because if you're riding next to us, we've had teams right next to us. We'll give you space as long as you're not getting in the way, right? So then with 2 laps to go, Lockwood's going to go from 3 to 2 or 3 to 1 or whatever. You got to figure out, kind of guess when that is, so that the power is up, so that when that guy, that all arounder, drops his 2 sprinters off, now they're sitting behind the train. They weren't fighting. They have like all of their legs and they can protect each other, and they're behind the train now and it's going, right? So now they're just sitting on.
Sounds super easy.
Yeah. You would have to wait. Lockwood's going to go, and then Hunter's going to go, and then Tyler's going to go. And you could do 2 things. When Scott is about to go, you could try to time it so that when Tyler is pulling off, you can like try to time it to where you box in Tyler, so that, because we're always against the barriers, right? So you got to try to time it so that when Tyler's ready to pull off, you get next to him and you hold him on the barrier. So like you're going to use one of your sprinters, but at that point, the only people that can go that fast is going to be another sprinter. So you're going to use one of your sprinters to basically box Tyler in, and that's going to now your sprinter behind him is going to be sitting second wheel instead of fourth wheel, right? And that's going to cause me and Corey and Scott to have to make a decision, because now Scott is like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be going right now, but I'm boxed in, and that's going to cause me and Corey to have to like figure out what to do next. Meanwhile, your sprinter is going to be second wheel going into, like, Tyler pulls off with like 2 corners to go sometimes. You know what I mean? So like basically it's going to be like a 1 minute effort from the first sprinter to put the second sprinter in position and to put us behind. Like starting the sprint from behind us is like already a losing hand. You got to get in front of us. So if you look at, the Boise video, when the Hincapie riders comes into turn 3 and slides in the train, basically you would try to do that, but you would try to have someone behind him that has better legs. And he spent a bunch of time fighting. So his name is Miguel. He spent a bunch of time fighting, so he didn't have the legs, but like I couldn't do anything. Like when he came under me, what was I gonna do? I'm not gonna crash. Like there's always another race, man. Like again, crashing sucks. So I had no choice but to let him in. If he had another rider with him, that would have put me. I would have went from being second on Corey's wheel to being fourth. So now I got to make up 4 spots. Corey's on the front with 250 meters to go. So now he's too far out to like go from there. He can't sit up because he can't stall. So now there's confusion in the sprint, right? So it's super hard to do, but like that would be one of the ways, right? The other way would be, I don't know, maybe you can take the front before we take the front and try to control. But like we're just like, our team is really good at doing that, right? So you would need to have a team that could match us, or that could, instead of, we have 3 sprinters basically, we have 2 sprinters, 2 all-arounders, but Scotty's more of a sprinter. So we have 3 sprinters. So you would have to maybe stack your team differently. Maybe you have, 4 or 5 big FTP guys, and then get to the front before us. And then know how to control the road, so that maybe there's a scramble for us to get behind, but your sprinter isn't working, right? So if your sprinter's not working, when it's time, when we finally do get past, if we do, your sprinter's going to be fresh, and we're going to have been fighting, and there's accelerations that happen. Like the more accelerations that happen in those last like 3 laps, the worse it is for like me and Corey, unless we're like really good. Maybe not Corey. Corey's really strong, but for me, it's the worse it is. It's lowering that top end. So like the more accelerations that happen, the more of that you can cause, the more we have to try to get past your 6 guys. The lower that power is going to come down, that top end, and the better chances that your sprinter is going to have from sitting on, right? The smooth train that's kind of right in the front. So those are the 2 ways you can do it. They're not easy, but like we're really good at what we do.
There's going to be a lot of teams who listen to this every night before they go to bed.
taking notes. Yeah. You're going to show up on the line, and people are going to have like AirPods in because they're going to be listening to you when you race.
No, it was funny enough, a Butcher Box at Boise last year, actually. They rode next to us for like, I think we took over a little bit early, maybe 15 minutes ago. But they rode next to us for like the first half of that, and they were doing a good job. Like they weren't rotating enough. Like what will happen if like a team comes next to us? Like what they did is like they were taking pulls. Like one guy would just pull until he was like blind, and then he would pull off. But instead of like rotating, because we weren't riding, we weren't riding all out. We would just accelerate when they would get too far up our train, right? So like understanding where you need to be on that train and understanding where we're not going to accelerate, so that your guy that's on the front of your train doesn't have to ride faster. And then like sharing that workload, so that like maybe you share that workload between the first 3 dudes, and you save the next 3 dudes, and then you can implement that plan of having those 3 guys try to split the train later in the race. But it's hard because, again, like we had Tyler at Boise and Scott's faster. So it's like now Tyler would be going into 1 lap to go, and Scott would be going into the second to last corner. So it's like, if you go watch that Boise video, you'll understand how ridiculous that sounds. Like, even for me as a sprinter sitting on, like, I'm like, oh, it's like the average speed of like the last lap is going to go up like 0.2 mile an hour. My power is going to go up like 100 watts or something, because now Tyler is going to go into 1 lap to go, like screaming fast. And then Scott is just going to sprint down the back straight, right? So like, instead of us going 40 like we did last year, we're going to be doing like 41 or 42 because Scott's that much faster, right? So how do you get around? How do you like to step out in the wind at 42 miles an hour is like 1,000 watts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't think I've ever sprinted that fast ever.
So it's like
even downhill.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you get past that, right? And then you have Corey in the sweet spot, and then if you want to fight for behind Corey, you got to fight me, which is like, good luck. So it's like it's just like we just set our team up in a way that like, yeah, it's just like we're just really good at that. What teams could do is, if they have big FTP guys, like figure out when you can send them up the road, right? Like it's not about just, this is the mistake that a lot of teams make. They come out and they just want to attack us like they're crazy. We can do 1,000 watts 100 times in a race and still sprint at 1,600 watts. So the more that people are like trying to ride in that upper range of like speed, like they're just going to kill their legs off, and it's what we're good at. It goes back to like playing our game, right? There's only a few moments where you can, if you're fresh, you can have an attack that's effective, right? And instead of that, people are constantly attacking us, they're playing our game, they're attacking and trying to like break us. You're not going to break us. Like, you're not going to break Corey Lockwood. You're not going to break Tyler Williams. You're not going to break Corey. You're not. They're too strong. The race is an hour and a half, right? They corner better than you probably. They understand momentum a little bit better. And even if you guys understand that the same, like you're not going to be able to stay away if you're just attacking us the whole race. But if there's always moments, man, and it usually comes around like 45 minutes. I probably shouldn't give that away, but it comes around 45 minutes where the people that are chasing aimlessly, that are helping the momentum of the field stay higher, at about 45 minutes, they can't do it anymore, right? And there's like this 10-minute section where if you have the power, then you can get space and you can have a chance, right? Like now, if you're a name, we're going to chase you down right away. Like I'm not giving Ty Magner 5 seconds. Like I'm not giving Rob Carpenter 5 seconds. You know what I mean? But there is that window of time where if you have the number, if you have the power, you can get that space and you do have a chance. But everyone shows up and they're just attacking like they're crazy. And then you have people that have no objectives, that are just chasing aimlessly. And it's like, cycling is so great and it's so awesome to watch because it's so chaotic. And people that understand how to live in that chaos, and once you start to understand a little bit of like what is happening in the chaos, then you can capitalize off of it.
That's awesome. That's so good right there. I lied. We do have one more question. When are you guys going to do Dirty Kanza? Because Nate's doing it. Nate's so in.
Funny. So Tyler Williams has a hashtag Legion Gravel Team. And I'm like, dude, it's never gonna happen. I don't know, man. I think that there's a couple guys that want to do Kanza. Like Tyler was signed up for Kanza this year, actually. Lance does everything. Lance he does everything. Lockwood would do it because he's just riding. I'm never doing Kanza, man. Like, you're not taking me into the middle of nowhere, no, to do 200 miles of like straight ass dirt run. I'm not even remotely interested.
I'm with you, Justin. Same. Not my deal. Well,
Not
good luck to
even
Nate in doing
remotely
it.
interested.
Justin, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, man. This is hopefully what we've gotten from this is an insane amount of sprint tips, how to build a team, and above all, what we should all do as cyclists to try to improve this sport and really the world, right? Because if we improve the world around us, it improves the world overall. So thanks for everything that you're doing, man. Super inspiring. Thanks to all the members of your team for doing that and the supporters of your team. And all those that have donated, and please continue to do so. Find those links down below, and make sure you follow Legion. You can follow Justin, Corey Lockwood. You can follow all the athletes that he's been talking about. Follow them all on social, so then you can keep in touch with what the team's doing. And probably one of the most exciting teams. I mean, it is the most exciting team in cycling, period, I would say. So pretty awesome stuff. So thanks, Justin, and we'll talk to you next time.
I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Justin.
Bye-bye.
Bye.